A week before my wedding, my fiancé's parents took him on a family trip. When he came back, he seemed distant and said, "I think we should take a break." I just smiled and handed him a file, saying that's funny because I just got some info about that trip. When he saw the file, he looked at his parents in anger. We were supposed to get married that month. Everything was ready: the venue, the dress, the guests, the cake. We had spent months planning. The wedding was in Savannah, Georgia, where we lived. I thought everything was fine. My fiancé, Derek, and I had been together for 3 years, and I thought he was the one. We weren't perfect, but no couple is. We didn't fight much. He made me laugh, and we both wanted the same things. I was happy, but his parents didn't like me. His mom, Ruth, judged people based on things like their shoes. His dad, Walter, didn't talk much unless he was bragging about his car or complaining about young people. They never liked me. I wasn't from a fancy family. I had a regular job, and I didn't care about golf memberships or which school you went to. Derek always told me not to worry, that his parents would come around, but they didn't. About a week before the wedding, Derek told me his parents were taking him on a trip to Miami. They didn't really have a reason, just a getaway before the wedding. I thought the timing was strange but didn't say anything. Looking back, I should have realized something was wrong when he was too eager to leave. He barely said goodbye when he left. By Saturday night, I knew something was wrong. My best friend, Sai, lives in Miami and works at a bar downtown, the kind of place people go to show off their money. She called me during her shift. "Isn't Derek supposed to be getting married next weekend?" she asked. "Yeah, why?" "Well, I think I just saw him with his parents and some girl." My stomach dropped. She said they were sitting at a VIP table all night. Derek, his parents, and a girl. Young, blonde, fake tan, short dress. She didn't seem like someone who was just sitting nearby. C said Ruth and Walter were all over this girl, laughing with her, asking her questions. Derek didn't push her away. That's when I realized they didn't just want a trip before the wedding. They wanted Derek to meet someone else. I don't remember much after that call. I sat quietly for a long time, then got angry, really angry. When I'm mad, I focus. Sunday morning, I started making calls and found a private investigator in Miami who specializes in relationship issues. I pay extra to follow Derek and his family until they left. By Monday afternoon, I had photos. Tuesday, I had videos. Wednesday, I had a full report: restaurants, hotels, bars, shopping, dinners. Derek was with the girl at every event, holding doors for her, laughing at her jokes, sitting close. His parents encouraged it. There was even a photo of Ruth and Walter walking ahead, holding hands like proud parents, while Derek and the girl lagged behind, whispering to each other. I didn't tell anyone yet. I just waited. Derek came back late Sunday night. Monday morning, he came over. I acted normal, made coffee, and asked how the trip went. He was quiet and jumpy, avoiding my eyes. Then he said, "I think we should take a break." I stared at him. A break? 6 days before the wedding. I didn't ask why. I just smiled, grabbed the folder with the photos and report, and slid it to him. "That's funny," I said, because I just got some info on that trip. He opened the folder. At first he looked confused, then his face turned white. He flipped through the pictures over and over, like hoping they'd change. They didn't. Then the door opened. Ruth and Walter walked in like they owned the place. Ruth was carrying a planner, and Walter was on his phone. "Hope we're not too early," Ruth said. "We have a lot to go over, Todd." Then she saw Derek's face, the folder, and me sitting there. Silence filled the room for a minute. Then Derek finally spoke. "What the hell is this?" he asked, looking at Ruth and Walter. Walter pretended not to hear. Ruth tried to laugh it off. "Come on, don't be dramatic," she said. Derek looked at the folder, then at me. "How did you get these?" he asked. I shrugged. "Doesn't matter. You and your parents can figure out what to do next. I'm done." That's where things stand now. No final decision yet. The wedding is obviously off for now. I haven't told most of my friends or family. I'm still trying to figure out what to do next. But watching Derek realize his parents tried to replace me with someone else, just days before our wedding, that was the first good moment I had in days. The silence after I said I was done was thick. Ruth set her planner down like we were still going to talk about flowers or seating charts. "Let's not overreact," she said, pretending to be calm. like I was being difficult on purpose. These pictures don't mean anything. We just wanted Derek to meet some new people. That's normal. I looked at Derek. He was still staring at the folder like he was trying to make sense of it. New people? I said, louder than I meant to. A week before our wedding, you thought that was normal. Walter finally looked up from his phone. Don't make a scene, he said, not even blinking. We were thinking long term. We didn't want Derek tied down if there might be better options. I swear, I felt my breath leave me. Better options? Derek didn't say anything. He just kept flipping through the folder like maybe the outcome would change if he looked again. His face was red now, embarrassed, angry. I couldn't tell. Maybe both. You let them do this? I asked. You went along with it. He finally looked up. It wasn't like that. What was it like? I asked. You thought maybe you'd try someone new while I stayed home finishing the guest list? He rubbed his forehead like I was the problem. I just wanted to keep the peace. That's when I laughed. It wasn't on purpose, but it came out loud. Keep the peace, I said. You could have just told me you didn't want to get married. Instead, you flew to Miami to see if someone better came along. Ruth sat on the couch like she owned the place. This is getting ridiculous. We didn't tell you because we knew how you'd react. Emotional, over the top. Look at yourself. I don't know what came over me, but I grabbed the folder, pulled out a photo of Derek and the girl, Madison, according to the report, and held it up in Ruth's face. This is ridiculous, I said. You brought her on a trip with your son and tried to replace me. How do you not hear yourself? Walter stood up and straightened his jacket like he was leaving a business meeting. You should calm down. This doesn't need to get messy. That's when something inside me changed. Oh, it's already messy, I said, and it's about to get worse. I didn't mean to say it. It just came out. But as soon as I said it, I realized I wasn't bluffing. I still had the rest of the private investigator's PI report in my email, much more than I printed out, receipts, hotel charges, flight changes. I even had a video of Ruth and Madison at the hotel bar, where Ruth told her, once this wedding is over, you and Derek will have all the time in the world. I hadn't shown Derek that part yet, but now I was thinking maybe I should. Derek ran his hand through his hair. Look, I don't even like Madison. My mom invited her. It wasn't my idea. Did you tell her to leave? Did you tell your parents? I asked. No, he replied, sounding guilty. Yeah, I thought so, I said, letting the silence hang. Then Ruth turned to Derek, ignoring me completely. Enough. Don't let her ruin everything. Just tell her you didn't mean it, calm her down, and we'll move forward. She actually said that right in front of me, like I was just a problem to deal with. That's when Derek finally spoke up. Mom, stop. For the first time, Ruth looked surprised. What? Derek asked, quieter now. You're making it worse. Oh, now I'm making it worse. Ruth shot back. I spent months fixing everything you didn't do right. The guest list, the menu, the decorations, none of it is good enough. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I looked at Derek, and this is okay with you? You're still defending them. He didn't answer. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table. I checked it. It was a text from my best friend, Sai. Girl, I just overheard Madison at the bar. You won't believe what she's saying. Call me ASAP. I locked eyes with Ruth. I think I'll be making some calls, I said, standing up. Actually, I think I'll be making a lot of calls. Walter spoke again, finally. Let's be reasonable. We don't need to make this public. Too late, I said. That's when I got an idea. If Madison was still talking in Miami, I needed to hear exactly what she was saying. And if Ruth and Walter thought this would stay quiet, they were wrong. I didn't reply to C's text immediately. I just stared at Derek, Ruth, and Walter, sitting there like it was some normal meeting. Derek looked guilty, Ruth was annoyed, and Walter acted like he wasn't involved. And all I could think was, what else are they hiding? I turned to Derek. How long have you known Madison? He shook his head. I didn't know her before the trip. Ruth scoffed. Please stop acting like you're on trial. The only one who did something wrong is Derek. He didn't look so sure anymore. I grabbed my phone, walked into the kitchen, and called Say. She picked up immediately. Hey, you need to hear this, she said. Madison's been here all afternoon, bragging about how she's finally sealing the deal. I was silent as C kept talking. She told her friend that your wedding was never supposed to happen. Apparently, Ruth promised her that if she got close to Derek on the trip, they'd take care of the rest. Take care of the rest? I repeated, confused. Yeah, like break up the wedding and replace you. Madison's been telling everyone she was flown out to Miami to break you two up. That's when my heart started pounding. This wasn't some random invite. C said they planned it. I hung up and walked back to the living room. I set my phone down on the table and looked directly at Ruth. So, I said, how much did you pay her? Ruth blinked. Excuse me? Madison, how much did you pay her to come on the trip and throw herself at Derek? Walter shifted in his seat. Derek rubbed his face. Ruth just smiled. You really are dramatic, she said. I just got off the phone with someone who heard Madison explaining the whole plan. She said you promised her the wedding would be called off and Derek would be available. So again, how much did you pay her? Still no answer. Derek looked at Ruth, quiet now. Then Ruth shrugged and said, we gave her a little incentive. Nothing serious. Some gifts, a bit of spending money. Why are we acting like this is a crime? I couldn't believe it. They paid her to help break us up before the wedding. Derek? He just sat there, looking like he was finally realizing how deep in this he was. I thought you invited her as a friend of the family, he said. Ruth laughed. Please, you didn't mind her company. Now Derek looked sick. That's when I decided to take things further. Oh, and by the way, I said Madison's been running her mouth all day. If I wanted to, I could share that little story with a few people. Maybe post it online. Maybe send it to the venues. Maybe let the wedding guests know exactly why things are off. Walter cleared his throat. There's no need for that. Let's not do anything drastic. But I wasn't done. Drastic? I said. You think I'm being drastic. Your family tried to replace me a week before my wedding, and I'm the problem. Then my phone buzzed again. Another text from C. Just found out Madison's still in town and asking when Derek's coming back. I looked at Derek. Did you know she stayed? He shook his head fast. No, I didn't. I haven't talked to her since the trip. I swear. But now everything was starting to make sense. Ruth hired Madison to mess with Derek. She probably promised her more than just spending money. Madison clearly expected this to turn into something real, and Derek? Either he was lying, or he had no idea what was happening. Neither was good. Tell me the truth, I said. Did you ever want to call off the wedding before Miami? He hesitated. Maybe, he said. I wasn't sure. And they kept saying I should see what else is out there. I just nodded. Cool, I said. Good to know, because now I knew the truth. I wasn't just dealing with manipulative future in-laws. I was dealing with a man who sat back and watched it all happen and called it keeping the peace. And Madison wasn't just some girl they invited randomly. She was part of the plan. A plan that wasn't over. If she was still in town waiting for Derek, then Ruth's little swap wasn't finished yet. But here's the thing, neither am I. And now I have all the proof. Now they know I know. And now it's time they get what they deserve. I didn't sleep at night. I replayed everything over and over. The trip, Madison, the lies, Derek admitting he wasn't sure he wanted to marry me before Miami. And now I knew why the whole trip fell off. It was never a family getaway. It was a setup. By morning, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I made a few calls. I forwarded the PI report to Sai. I texted my maid of honor, Tina, to meet me at the coffee shop near my apartment. I needed backup. Are you sure you're ready for this? Tina asked. Oh, I'm past ready, I said. It's time they explain themselves to everyone. And that's how I ended up inviting Derek, Ruth, Walter, and Madison to the venue the next day. The actual wedding venue. I told them we needed an urgent meeting of the ceremony. Ruth, of course, thought it was just a last-minute rehearsal. She had no clue what was coming. By noon, everyone was there. The venue staff were setting up chairs for the real wedding, which was supposed to happen in a few days. It felt unreal to watch them work while everything was falling apart. Madison showed up last, dressed like she thought she was the bride. Short white dress, heels, heavy makeup. When she walked in and saw me, she smirked. I didn't realize this was a group meeting, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Yeah, I said. Figured we'd clear the air. Everyone sat down at one of the big round tables. Derek looked exhausted. Walter looked bored. Ruth looked smug. Madison looked like she thought she'd already won. And me? I opened my laptop, connected it to the venue's projector, and pulled up the photos from the PI report on the big screen behind me. First slide, Derek and Madison by the pool. Second slide, Ruth and Madison having drinks. Third slide, Madison kissing Derek on the cheek while Walter watched. No one spoke. Then I hit play on the video, the one where Ruth told Madison, "Once this wedding is over, you and Derek will have all the time in the world." The room was silent, except for Ruth's voice echoing. When it ended, I turned around. "Anyone want to explain that?" Ruth finally cracked. "Oh, grow up. You're turning this into a scandal." Nothing happened. Derek didn't cheat. Madison is just a friend you paid. I said, "We know." Madison told everyone at the bar in Miami. Half of South Beach knows the plan by now. Madison tossed her hair. "Well, not half, but yeah, it wasn't exactly a secret. Your wedding was never going to happen. Derek deserves someone who fits in, someone with class." She actually said that out loud. Tana, who had been quiet until now, laughed sarcastically and said, "Jesus Christ." Then Derek stood up, and for a second, I thought maybe he would defend me. But no, he looked at his mom, then at Madison, and then at me. All he said was, "I think we should all just go our separate ways." That's when I realized he was never going to stand up for me. Not now, not ever. This wasn't just Ruth's plan. Derek was okay with it. Maybe he didn't start it, but he let it happen. He watched it happen. He wanted an out, and his parents gave it to him. I closed my laptop, packed it into my bag, and stood up. "Well," I said, "this is the last time any of you will ever see me. Good luck explaining this when people start asking why the wedding's off." And with that, I walked out. The second I stepped outside, Tana followed. "You handled that like a queen," she said. "Seriously, you should have slapped someone." But that was better. Callie called me about 10 minutes later. "You are not going to believe this," she said. "Madison's already posting Instagram stories, acting like she just got engaged to Derek. I mean, literally hashtagging things like #future_misses and #upgrade. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because what else could I do? By the end of the day, word was spreading. People were texting me, asking why the wedding was suddenly canceled. Ruth tried to say it was because of mutual differences, but it didn't stick. Madison couldn't keep quiet. By the next week, everyone knew. The fallout was big. Ruth and Walter lost a lot of friends. Turns out people don't like being part of a wedding where the groom's parents tried to bribe another woman into replacing the bride. Derek stayed with Madison for about 3 weeks. She left as soon as she realized the high life she was promised wasn't real. No wedding, no fancy lifestyle, no cash. Just Derek and his boring personality. Madison got roasted online. Say might have shared some of those Miami stories with the right people. And me? Honestly, it hurt. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. For a long time, I kept wondering what I missed. How I didn't see the signs. How Derek let it go this far. How Ruth and Walter thought they could actually pull this off. Like we were in some soap opera. But once everything calmed down, there was this weird sense of peace. I wasn't married to a man who didn't love me. I wasn't tied to a family that thought I wasn't good enough. And instead of crying in my old wedding dress, I spent the weekend with my real friends. We threw the most ridiculous non-wedding party you've ever seen. Champagne, karaoke. I even brought my wedding cake and smashed it with forks. And around midnight, I realized I wasn't sad anymore. I was free. And honestly, that felt better than any wedding ever could.
Hey, why do you have the latest game console? Oh, Max wanted it, so I bought it. What? Why do you have so much money? I withdrew it from our joint account. Huh? Why did you do that? It's fine. It's marital property after all. My husband has been distributing the inheritance in each case. But honestly, it's not that much. Therefore, if my husband continues to spend money as he currently does, the funds will eventually run out. Since our son also intends to go to college in the future, tuition will be needed as well. In such a situation, I am seriously concerned about whether we can make a living in the future. My name is Nicole. I am a 43-year-old office worker. I have been married to Sean for almost 15 years now. Our son, Max, is currently 17 years old and attends high school. In fact, our son is my husband's child from a previous relationship. My husband had a previous spouse who disappeared right after giving birth. After his ex-wife disappeared, he took care of his son alone with support from his parents. Then one day, a completed divorce application arrived and he had no choice but to divorce. After some time, we started dating and eventually got married. At the time, our son was 2 years old and recognized me as his real mother. There was deep affection between Sean and me, and our son also felt close to me. So we decided to marry early and build a family. Thus, we became a couple. Despite what happened with the ex-wife, his parents warmly welcomed me. Nicole seems trustworthy. Unlike the previous wife, she doesn't have instability. Honestly, I wasn't too surprised when she suddenly disappeared. My mother-in-law said this calmly, and I admired her mental strength. With the support of my in-laws, I felt that the first experience of parenting would go smoothly. Since our son is also fond of his grandmother, she could offer advice if needed. Thus, our married life began. Our son was adorable, and our newlywed life with my husband was fun. The initial phase of marriage was truly happy. Our son grew up healthy, and the relationship within the family was good. Every day was enjoyable. When busy with work, my mother-in-law came to help, and the family supported each other through various challenges. I believed our happy days would continue indefinitely, but unexpected events happened suddenly. What? You were laid off? This happened about 10 years after we got married. Due to the economic downturn and worsening management, the company my husband worked for implemented a massive layoff, and unfortunately, my husband was one of them. Damn it. Why was I laid off? For my husband, the news of being laid off was a huge shock as he had not anticipated it. Did you ask your boss to reconsider? Of course, I tried. I also asked for the reason. They said it would be okay because my wife earns well. They told me there's no problem with our income because you work for a big company. Oh, apparently, my high income was the reason my husband was put on the layoff list. Knowing this fact, I was engulfed in complex emotions. I felt guilty, but I had worked hard in job hunting, joined my current company, and worked as an employee to increase my salary. Currently, I hold a managerial position, have subordinates, and am working as hard as I can. It's hard to accept that my efforts are seen in a negative light. But you know, if the management is bad, the company might eventually go bankrupt. It's a chance to change jobs earlier, let's think positively. That's true. Although my husband's expression was gloomy, he tried to change his mood with my encouragement. However, when nothing seems to go right, nothing progresses as hoped. He seems to be struggling to find a new job. Even when trying to find a workplace that offers a salary equivalent to his previous one, he's not successful. When I suggested, how about considering a lower salary level? He exploded in anger, asking, "Are you mocking me? I don't mean it that way, but it's going to be tough if you can't find a job. Seeing my husband suffer like this is unbearable for me. That's why I hoped he would decide to re-employ even if it meant accepting a lower salary and start working actively again." After many discussions, I encouraged him to take interviews at various companies. However, that attempt also failed. Even when considering lower salary levels, he wasn't hired. Gradually, my husband's mood became more volatile. "You're the one who said to think about lowering the salary. And yet, it's completely useless. Are you trying to embarrass me?" He yelled at me, overwhelmed by anger. Facing such unjust anger, I too was at a loss. However, my husband had no one but me to direct his powerless anger at. Therefore, he decided to give up on regular employment and instead started working part-time. For me, having even a little income is far better than clashing with my stressed husband. But unfortunately, misfortunes seemed to follow one after another. It was sudden, but my father-in-law passed away due to illness, leaving us speechless. The suddenness of it meant neither my husband nor I could catch up with our emotions. When we rushed to the hospital, my father-in-law had already passed away and was lying on a bed covered with a white cloth. Dad, why? We always appreciated my father-in-law's kindness, and his death brought deep sadness. An emotional outburst at the funeral was inevitable, and we shed tears. "Mother, are you okay?" "Yes, I'm sorry to worry you." I never thought my husband would pass away first. He always said he didn't want to be left behind. He promised me, "Don't worry, I'll see you off." And yet, he broke that promise. My mother-in-law was deeply disappointed at losing her beloved husband. Our 12-year-old son understood the concept of death and mourned his grandfather deeply. Since then, I began visiting my mother-in-law regularly. I did so because I didn't want her to feel the loneliness that often comes with living alone. "Nicole, thank you always. But aren't you pushing yourself too hard? You seem pale." "No, it's nothing. I'm just a bit busy with work." I replied to my mother-in-law's concern like that. But in reality, I felt a significant burden. My husband, while only working as a part-timer 2 or 3 days a week, didn't help with household chores at all. As a result, I had to take on all household duties in between my busy work schedule, sometimes even while working overtime. My growing son had a hearty appetite, necessitating the preparation of a substantial amount of food. "I'm hungry. Is dinner not ready yet?" Unaware of how much I was struggling, our son made self-centered demands. "I'm preparing it now. Please wait a bit." "What? That's useless. Don't talk to your mom like that. Be quiet. If you don't want to be complained at, do your chores properly." Our son was entering his rebellious phase and started to behave rudely towards me. I was already mentally and physically exhausted, and facing such issues only added to the hardship. "Hey, can you say something? Max's behavior has been too much lately." When I brought up the issue, my husband reluctantly responded, "It's natural for a son to act that way towards his mother. He'll change his attitude as he grows up." Still, since my husband didn't support me, our son thought he could get away with anything. "Can you increase my allowance, Mom?" "It's not possible. The amount we're giving now is enough. You'll have to manage with that." "What?" "Our life is supported by Dad." That is, while I was at a loss for words, my husband was watching me from afar. Actually, my husband had asked me to hide the fact that he was employed on a non-regular basis from our son. He wanted to maintain his pride as a father. It seemed trivial to me, but I felt it was important to him. However, seeing our son say such things, I realized that this fact was indeed affecting him. Even the income from Mom's part-time job isn't much different from mine. If I start working part-time in high school, I could earn as much as Mom does. Our son declared this and wouldn't listen to anything I said. As a result, my stress increased day by day, and it began to show in my physique. Since I needed to prepare meals for our son and husband first, I ended up eating my portion after they had finished. Consequently, eating late and the stress made it easier for me to gain weight. Gradually, I gained about 22 pounds in half a year. Although I wouldn't be considered obese, I had clearly become rounder. Our son and husband started to mock me, comparing me to a pig and laughing. "Mom, you clearly can't manage yourself. Don't come to the school open day. It's embarrassing." Our son, now in middle school, became even more disrespectful, and it seemed my husband was encouraging that attitude. "Hey, why did you buy a new game console?" "Max wanted it, so I bought it." "Wait, how did you afford that?" "I used our joint account." "Huh? Why would you do that without asking?" "It's fine. It's our shared funds. I'm just trying to maintain a good relationship with our son as a father." "How does giving things build a good relationship?" "Quiet down. Enjoying games together is a form of interaction. Don't get mad over trivial things. If you're concerned, you should worry about your own figure." My husband snapped back with those words. After that, no matter what our son requested, my husband continued to provide it instantly. Our son stopped asking me for things and only asked my husband. My husband happily fulfilled our son's requests, giving him anything, but the money used came from our shared savings. There was a time when my husband contributed a bit to the savings, but the funds were depleting at a fast pace, and soon my contributions might also be exhausted. When our son entered high school, my husband started buying him expensive wallets and brand-name clothes, probably to maintain a facade for our son. providing valuable items so our son wouldn't realize that his father was a non-regular employee. However, my husband's contributions to our shared savings almost ceased, and in reality, I was covering all living expenses. My husband seemed indifferent to this fact, covering gifts for our son from the shared savings, while his allowance came from his part-time income. My husband seemed to be self-sufficient in managing money, showing no intention of contributing to the household. My father-in-law passed away a few years ago, and last year, my mother-in-law also left this world. Although their inheritance was divided, it wasn't much in reality. If my husband continues spending at this rate, our funds will eventually run out, sooner or later. Our son also wishes to go to college, which will require tuition fees. Facing such financial conditions, I felt a deep anxiety about how we would manage in the future. At that time, our son wanted an expensive watch for his birthday, costing several $1,000s. Clearly, a high school student doesn't need such an expensive item. Yet, my husband said, "That's great. Then, how about Dad buys one too and we both wear the same brand?" I couldn't stand it anymore and spoke out strongly. Look at reality. A high school student doesn't need such expensive items, and you need to start saving. We can't afford to make such purchases. When I got angry, my husband was shocked and became furious. "What did you say? You're just a wife. Don't get cocky." Our son agreed with my husband's opinion, saying, "That's right. You're just a pet pig." As our son began to mock me, my husband joined in, laughing. "You look just like an unsightly pig." "Hey, Dad, what should we do with such a pig? She doesn't earn much anyway. Indeed, we should kick out a pig that brings in little income from the house." This is how my husband and son insulted me. I had reached my breaking point. Why should I endure such treatment? I decided to leave the house with my belongings. The rest is up to them. They won't manage well without me. As I was packing, my husband and son mocked me, saying, "Good riddance to the noisy one." I didn't argue back, just silently packed my things and left the house. For the night, I stayed at a hotel and withdrew my share of the money from the bank the next morning. It was the money I had contributed to our joint account over the years. A week later, I received an angry call from my husband. I was busy, but I didn't want it to affect my work, so I reluctantly answered. "Hey, why did you withdraw money from the account? Return the money, thief." My husband was screaming, but that money was all earned by me. "It seems you're mistaken, but the funds in the joint account are not solely yours. I have been contributing my earnings every month. I withdrew my share because I didn't want it to be spent without my consent. So, the remaining amount is equivalent to what you have contributed. If nothing is left, it means you have spent all of your savings. That is, Nicole, come back." Upon hearing those words, I ended the call. Then, I immediately blocked his number. They should learn the hard way what it's like without me. For a year, I didn't return home. During that time, my husband and son contacted me numerous times. Months passed, and it seemed that my husband's part-time income was not enough to sustain their lives. Realizing their dire situation, our son demanded the truth from my husband. Eventually, my husband confessed, and since then, they had been struggling to bring me back home. I rented an apartment close to my workplace and focused on my job. As a result, I was able to lead a significant project to success. A year passed quickly as I concentrated on my work, and feeling it was time to settle things with my husband and son, I agreed to meet them. It was the moment for a final decision regarding our past relationship. When we finally met, the condition of my husband and son was pitiful. They appeared before me in a deteriorated state, their clothes ragged, hair unkempt, and it was clear they were not leading a healthy lifestyle. Since the last time I saw them, they had lost a noticeable amount of weight in a state that couldn't be considered healthy. During this time, I managed to regain my health due to the change in my living situation, losing about 22 pounds in a year and returning to my slim figure. Without making significant changes to my diet, merely putting mental distance between myself and my husband and son greatly reduced my stress. Additionally, incorporating moderate exercise into my lifestyle contributed significantly to my weight loss. My husband earnestly pleaded for me to return, but his plea did not move my heart. "Please, come back." As he begged on his knees, I responded calmly, "Such worthless pleading? What could it possibly mean? It's useless to do such a thing. I came here today to formally request a divorce." I stated clearly. At that moment, it seemed as if the color drained from the faces of my husband and son. "Wait, if we get divorced, we'll truly be left with nowhere to go." My husband pleaded desperately. Our son also said, "Yeah, I've already sold all my branded stuff for lunch money. I can't stand this poverty any longer," appealing to the severity of our current situation. However, I had already made my decision and was ready to start a new life away from my husband and son. "I have no obligation to you. You ignored me and treated me like a servant. I'm fed up with both of you. I've decided to eliminate you from my life, so I'm cutting ties completely." Our son suddenly seemed to realize something and argued back. "Then, you should pay child support. If you're divorcing Dad, you should be the one to pay." My husband agreed with our son, intensifying their demand. "That's right. Since you're the one earning, you should pay child support. Then we can agree to the divorce." They seemed to think they had played a clever hand. However, my husband and son were overlooking a crucial fact. "Actually, I'm not obligated to pay you any child support." "What? Max, you're not biologically related to me." Our son looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "Max, you are a child of his previous wife. Shortly after you were born, your biological mother disappeared and you were raised by your grandparents. I married your father when you were 2 years old. So, we have no blood relation, and I have no obligation to pay child support after the divorce." "I see. Despite that, I have loved and cared for you as my own child, but I can't take it anymore. I'm ending my marriage with this man, severing ties with you, and we're going back to being complete strangers." My declaration seemed to shock our son and husband, leaving them visibly pale. "I want you to sign the divorce papers immediately, but if that's difficult, I'll have to hire a lawyer and possibly take this to court." "Court? We can't afford that." "Then sign the divorce papers." My husband reluctantly signed the divorce papers. Afterward, I submitted the divorce documents to the city hall, and the divorce from my husband was officially finalized. My ex-husband is now juggling multiple part-time jobs, exhaustedly supporting both his son's education and their livelihood. However, due to the shock of the truth about his lies and the fact that I wasn't their biological mother, our son harbors strong resentment towards him, and their relationship has significantly deteriorated. I still receive messages from them asking for help, but I ignore them. I hope our son takes this opportunity to reflect on himself and improve his character. As for my ex-husband, even if he suffers from the consequences of his actions, I feel nothing. With these thoughts, I continue to immerse myself in my work today. For the foreseeable future, I plan to focus more on achieving results at work than on love or marriage. My name is Dorothy. I am 68 years old this year. At the end of last year, my husband, with whom I lived, suddenly passed away from cancer, and I had to move in with my eldest son, John, on short notice. Originally, my husband and I lived in the house where John and his family now reside. However, when John started his own family and had a child, we moved to a small one-room apartment nearby and gave them the house. We tried to be considerate in our own way. John runs his own business and couldn't get a mortgage due to his unstable income, so my husband decided to give them the house, thinking about the future of our grandchildren. When we handed over the house, we renovated the interior to make it as good as new. John was blessed with 3 children afterward, and we maintained a good relationship, playing with our grandchildren occasionally, and dining together at a nearby restaurant on birthdays. But when my husband was diagnosed with cancer and it was too late for treatment, he contacted John, concerned about my future, and said, "After I'm gone, please take care of Mother. Live with her." My husband asked John to live with me. I told my husband not to worry as I was still healthy and could live alone, but he wouldn't accept it. He was worried about leaving me alone. John respected his father's last wish and accepted living with me. In fact, since we gave the house to John, I had never set foot in it. Thinking that John's wife, Cindy, might mind, I refrained from visiting their house. Therefore, I encountered an unexpected sight when I arrived at the house. To avoid being a burden, I moved to John's house with minimal luggage. The house was originally a modest 4-room house with 3 rooms upstairs and 1 downstairs. John came out of the house and said, "Was today the moving day?" He seemed surprised. He's always been forgetful, and that hasn't changed even as an adult. As I entered the house, I saw a mountain of shoes and a strange smell wafting from inside. The exterior looked normal, so I was shocked. John seemed unconcerned and muttered, "Dad said so, so I accepted it. But honestly, there's no place for you to live here, Mom," as he walked inside. Reluctantly, I took off my shoes and entered the house, where I found the room on the first floor overflowing with items. The living and dining rooms I was shown were also cluttered with shopping bags and trash, leaving no place to stand. It was like the trash houses I had seen on TV, and I was astonished. Despite its clean exterior, the inside was like a different world in its filthiness. When Cindy, John's wife, noticed my arrival, she got up from the sofa. "Mother, since there's no place to lay out a mattress, please find somewhere appropriate. I'm too tired from work to prepare anything," she said before lying down again. She runs a beauty salon and, according to John, makes a substantial income. As I looked at John, he said, "I'm tired from work too. Why don't you organize the room yourself and make some space?" And then he went upstairs. With no choice, I moved the items from the room to the hallway, only for Cindy to yell, "Hey, don't put things in the hallway, they're in the way." I quickly apologized and arranged them, to which she said, "It's fine to tidy up, but don't throw anything away without asking," and returned to the living room. I managed to clear a small space. I was utterly exhausted from tidying up the heavily cluttered room. Then Cindy said, "Mother, can't you at least help with preparing the meal? I'm not your maid." I responded, "Oh, it's already time for dinner, isn't it?" I got carried away with cleaning and lost track of time, and hurried to the kitchen. I was so engrossed in tidying up the room that I lost track of time. The kitchen was littered with food waste, but Cindy was busily frying a large amount of meat. When I asked if there was anything I could help with, she pointed to the dishes and said, "Can you do the washing up?" She then added in a low voice, "I was hoping that you'd consider ordering pizza or something since you suddenly came to stay with us." Pondering over her words and my own sense of propriety, I decided not to argue and replied with a smile, "Sorry about that. I was a bit busy today, but how about we order pizza tomorrow?" Cindy's mood improved and she smiled. "That sounds good. Let's do that tomorrow." I reminded myself that the mess in the house was understandable given they had 3 children, and Cindy herself worked as a beautician and manager. I realized I needed to change my mindset to adapt to living there. That evening's dinner was just a lot of grilled meat and potatoes, with no other vegetables or soup prepared. Surprisingly, despite living in a dirty house, Cindy was very particular about clothing. She would always wash clothes and towels after just one use and strictly instructed her children not to get dirty. As a result, the whole family always looked presentable when going out, and they never realized the state of the house until now. From the next day, I devoted myself to cleaning. I neatly arranged items that were unclear whether they were trash or not, and sought confirmation from Cindy when she returned from work. Due to the large amount of trash, she eventually started to respond with a disinterested, "It's okay, just throw it away," when I asked for confirmation daily. I hesitated to touch other people's things, but it was hard to see the house I once lived in so dirty and with no walking space. After a month, the trash was finally cleared and the house became orderly. With walking space now available, the house looked significantly cleaner. The grandchildren were delighted, playing on the carpet and saying, "It's like the house we see on TV." Their habit of throwing half-eaten snacks on the floor also disappeared. Though John and Cindy never thanked me, I didn't mind as I did it willingly. But I didn't know that my cleaning was actually being seen as a nuisance. Far from being grateful, Cindy felt offended by my actions, saying, "What's this, sarcasm? A mother-in-law's check." No one complained or asked for it. I accidentally overheard this during a late-night trip to the bathroom while John and Cindy were having a drink. John said, "If it weren't for Dad's words, we wouldn't have taken her in, who lives on a pension." His words were in full support of Cindy. Hearing this directly made me very sad. Wondering if there was something wrong with the way I raised him, I returned to my room unnoticed. I felt pathetic sleeping in a dark, small space surrounded by my belongings. However, thinking of my grandchildren who grew up in an unclean environment, I convinced myself that my actions were right and fell asleep. After that, whenever I cleaned, Cindy would quietly leave somewhere. Unable to bear always having meat and potatoes for meals, I proposed to Cindy, "Would it be okay if I made a stew next time? Considering my age, I need vegetables." She hysterically placed the dishes down and coldly replied, "Do as you like, but arrange the ingredients yourself." It seemed I had angered her. From then on, she left all cooking to me and stopped entering the kitchen. The grandchildren, likely deficient in vitamins, ate vegetables and fruits, saying, "It's so delicious." They started to become affectionate, asking, "Grandma, put a fried egg on the curry?" "Me too, me too." One night, when Cindy was late due to a drinking party, the grandchildren came to my mattress and slept with me. Since then, even when their parents were home, they started sleeping with me. This probably irritated Cindy even more. Having the children become attached to their grandmother might not have been pleasant for her. Eventually, I ended up preparing all the meals. About half a year after that, the summer holidays began, and the family started planning a vacation. Without saying anything to me, John and Cindy, along with the children, were looking at brochures and searching online. It was clear from their behavior and attitude that they had no intention of taking me with them. Honestly, even if they did, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I decided to enjoy my role in taking care of the house in their absence. However, my eldest grandchild suddenly asked, "Grandma is coming too, right?" The expressions of John and Cindy were complicated, but as the grandchild insisted on my joining, it was decided that I would go along. Cindy, seemingly displeased, said, "Since we'll go early, please prepare everyone's breakfast and do the laundry. It's only natural since we're taking you." Therefore, I woke up at 4 a.m. to prepare the meals and do the laundry. On the car journey, I needed frequent bathroom breaks due to my age, and whenever we entered the highway, I had to ask, "Sorry, could we stop for a break?" Several times. John and Cindy, eager to reach the destination, could barely hide their irritation at the crowded rest stops. The grandchild who wanted me to come also became impatient, saying, "Let's go quickly." John scolded, "It's your fault," which startled the grandchild into crying loudly. With the added traffic congestion, the mood in the car worsened, and Cindy kept complaining, "We spent so much money for this, and it's terrible." It was hard enough for me to get a break. Upon reaching the amusement park, I said, "I'll wait at the cafe while everyone enjoys themselves," and distanced myself. After the children regained their spirits and ran off to the playgrounds, Cindy returned and said, "Please pay for your own expenses," adding another layer of discomfort. With no facilities for the elderly at the amusement park and the cafe getting crowded, I decided to sit on a bench outside. I had taken precautions against the sun, but the summer heat was intense, and the next thing I knew, I was in the amusement park's medical room. I overheard a doctor-like person scolding John and Cindy, saying, "How could you neglect an elderly person like this?" It seemed I had a mild heat stroke. The early morning lunch preparation, laundry, and long car ride seemed to have affected my poor health. John and Cindy, looking annoyed, took me back to the hotel. After checking in, they led me to my room, saying, "Please don't cause any more trouble, and we really shouldn't have brought you." We're going out for the night, so eat something before leaving for the amusement park again. Feeling dizzy, I laid myself down. Alone in the quiet hotel, I began to question what I was doing. Usually, I was busy caring for my grandchildren and doing housework without much time to think. The vacation planning lacked consideration for me, and no one cared that I fell ill after being overwhelmed with early morning tasks. I was lying down there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was right. I thought that if I were to collapse in the future, they would probably neglect me just as they had now. Even though I did housework, I was treated as a nuisance. As a mother who had given birth to a son, I realized that I had been harboring expectations, but that was a mistake. I fell asleep pondering whether I should make a decision. Later on, around 6 p.m., I heard my grandchildren's voices asking, "Grandma, are you okay?" They seemed to have returned early from the amusement park because they were worried about me. John and Cindy were whispering in the background, sounding displeased. Cindy then said, "Kids, go outside. I'll talk to her and let the children go out to the hotel's playground." Then Cindy began, "Mother, please stop. Don't you think it's extravagant for an elderly person to travel? Shouldn't someone living on a pension stay home and clean? You're good at cleaning, right?" she said accusingly. The trip was planned for 2 nights and 3 days, and we were supposed to go back to the amusement park the next day. The final day was scheduled for a trick art exhibition and a museum tour, which I thought I could participate in. However, when I asked, "Do I have to leave right now?" John replied irritably, "What else is there?" He vented, "What am I supposed to do now? The plans are ruined. Honestly, I only took you in because of Dad's will, but I can't stand the idea of you having fun for free." Those words solidified the vague decision I had in my mind. I realized I should sever ties with them. I stood up and said I understand, gathered my belongings, went to the front desk, and asked for a taxi. When my grandchildren noticed me, I thought of it as a final farewell and said, "Grandma isn't feeling well, so I'm going home early. You guys have fun," and patted their heads. They seemed to sense something was wrong but couldn't articulate it and just said, "Get well soon," with a smile. I got into the taxi, gave the driver my home address, and he expressed concern about the long-distance fare. I showed him my platinum card and said, "I'll pay with this." He thanked me and started driving quietly to avoid making me feel sick. Upon arriving home, I immediately began cleaning. This time, the cleaning seemed to be quite extensive. The condominium I used to live in was up for rent, but fortunately, no tenant had been found yet, so I was able to return right away. The next day, I packed my things, left John and Cindy's house, and contacted a real estate agent. I said, "I want to let go of that house." After a week, John, apparently having trouble with the real estate agent who came for the appraisal, called me furiously. I visited their house and quietly said, "I've decided to end our relationship here. That's why I'm selling this house. It's essential to discard unnecessary things when cleaning, after all." John and Cindy looked puzzled. "This is Dad's house, right? It all became mine through inheritance." John argued. Cindy, in a fit of anger, said, "Exactly. This is my husband's property. What are you doing on your own?" Sighing, I asked, "You inherited it, but do you remember changing the house's title?" John replied, "I don't remember, but I thought it automatically became mine. That's not the case. This house is in my name." I explained, and they looked shocked. "What do you mean?" they asked. "That's what I mean. Also, this marks the end of the financial aid to your company," I declared. "Financial aid? Was I getting loans from you, Mom?" John was astonished. I knew about John's forgetfulness, but I didn't expect it to be this severe. "Have you forgotten? We deposited funds into your account every month for your business. We had a contract for that," I explained. John turned pale. "I thought that money was earned by Cindy," he said, looking dumbfounded. Cindy also looked shocked, confronting John. "You thought that money was earned by me? I thought it was yours." Initially, when John was struggling for funds in his early marriage, I decided to invest in his business for the sake of my grandchildren. To avoid it being seen as inheritance, I set up a personal asset management company for the investment. I had explained this clearly to John, but it seemed he mistook it for Cindy's income. Our company's name coincidentally resembled that of Cindy's beauty salon, causing the confusion. Suddenly, John asked, "Wait a minute, you mean the investments continued even after Dad passed away? Isn't that Dad's company?" "I am the president of that company," I said. He looked at me as if he couldn't believe it. Cindy, too, was agape with astonishment. For the sake of your father's honor, I kept silent, but actually, that asset was mine. My parents were wealthy, I revealed calmly. We had married against my parents' wishes, almost like eloping. John had never met my grandparents, but as time passed, we reconciled. When they passed away, I inherited their assets. This was a distinct property, not part of the communal assets with my husband, but my personal property. "Wait, so Dad didn't own it?" John asked, stunned. "Right, as I've said multiple times, Dad didn't leave much inheritance." I explained. It might have been natural for John and Cindy to assume it was his dad's inheritance from a general perspective. However, their belief that they received the inheritance without any formalities showed a lack of thought on John's part as a son. Originally, John started his own business because he was fired from every company he worked at. "Nobody understands my talent," he would rant. We were puzzled about how to support him. Not wanting him to squander the inheritance on frivolities, we provided him with capital and loans. John, misunderstanding it as Cindy's income, had exhausted it on living expenses and business funds. Cindy's beauty salon wasn't doing well either, and her income was minimal. Yet, she seemed to be relying on John's supposed income. I thought I would inherit this house. I just followed Dad's instructions. John expressed his anger. "Wait, this house isn't in your name? I thought it was already bought because it was renovated." Cindy was furious. Disappointed by their attitudes, I said, "From now on, manage your affairs by yourselves," and prepared to leave. At that moment, Cindy grabbed my shoulder tightly and said with a mix of anger and anxiety, "Wait a minute. Don't you care about your cute grandchildren? What about us? Using grandchildren as a threat? How low can you go?" I firmly said, "You can't choose your parents. Maybe there were problems with the way I raised you, but I'm done coddling. That's best for the grandchildren too," and I left the scene. Behind me, I could hear John and Cindy raising their voices. John said, "It's your fault." And Cindy retorted, "What are you talking about? You're to blame too." Eventually, the house was sold and John's business failed due to a lack of funds, leading to their divorce. They gave up custody, and I ended up taking care of the grandchildren. John and Cindy then became incommunicado, and I have no idea where they are or what they're doing now. Under my guidance, the grandchildren learned valuable household skills. The eldest learned to cook, the middle child mastered cleaning, and the youngest got good at organizing. They are learning the importance of handling their affairs themselves. Now, they collaborate and complete the housework without my intervention. They will live their lives, learning from their parents' failures. I am happy that I could teach my grandchildren important values. Balancing their studies and housework, they also take care of me, and we are living peaceful days now. How long have we been discussing this topic? Don't get carried away, or it's divorce. I doubt my husband really meant that. Tomorrow, as his mother is set to be discharged from her treatment, my husband keeps pushing the idea of her moving in with us. I have absolutely no interest in living together, have opposed it in the past, and have no intention of changing my mind in the future. After all, how well does he even understand the numerous discussions we've had about his mother? If he truly remembered, he wouldn't be forcing this living arrangement. Frustrated, I hung up the phone. I am Kathy Brown, and I will be 52 this year. Last fall, our daughter Nicole got married and moved out to start her own life. Since then, it's been just Eric and me. Eric and I met nearly 30 years ago through a mutual friend, and we were married 2 years later. Both of us have our careers. Eric works for a company, and I'm a civil servant. Both Eric, a company employee, and I, a civil servant, have continued working to eventually save up to buy our own home and travel the world after retirement. His family is from a rural area and engaged in farming and has strong traditional values where women quit their jobs upon marriage to become housewives, and the eldest son is expected to take over the family home. This is something my in-laws often emphasized. Hearing these outdated views from them, I even hesitated to marry. But unbound by such values, Eric always reassured me, saying, "Don't worry." Since his sister and her husband were set to take over his family home, we felt secure to continue our careers, build our home, and dream of a new life together. After marriage, we shared household duties and enjoyed our days together. Eric's parents never visited our home, and my parents did not interfere. On weekends, we often traveled or relaxed at home, cherishing our time together. About 2 years into our marriage, I experienced pregnancy. My parents who lived nearby regularly checked in and supported me daily, allowing me to give birth in this area without having to return home. Our family was blessed with a lovely baby girl. With the birth of a newborn followed many traditional customs. The first significant one was the baptism. When I asked my in-laws to stay for this occasion, the response was sarcastic. "So the baby truly has come into the world. Since you didn't come to visit, I almost thought she didn't exist." Besides, planning the baptism during the most hectic time of the year, that's quite the hassle. After giving birth, traveling long distances was difficult, and we didn't plan to meet Eric's family until the beginning of the next year, though we had sent them several photos in the meantime. Despite knowing I wasn't making this up, I was deeply hurt by my mother-in-law's cold reaction. Postpartum is already a mentally unstable time. When I discussed this with Eric, he comforted me, saying, "Don't worry. It's just that she couldn't express her feelings honestly. She just wanted to meet the baby sooner. Seeing how cute Nicole is, she'll surely apologize." During the baptism, my previously stern mother-in-law was visibly delighted the moment she held the newborn. It seems the loneliness of not meeting her due to my parents taking care of the baby had made her a bit jealous. That day, both sets of parents spent time amicably, and I felt satisfied. While I was standing a bit further away and watching everyone, my mother-in-law quietly approached. "Thank you so much for today. You must be tired from the long journey. How did you find the baby? I think she looks like Eric. Girls often resemble their fathers, don't they?" I said with a smile. However, the smile on my mother-in-law's face vanished. Her complexion changed immediately, and she showed a slightly angry expression. "It was a long journey to come here. Usually, it's the man's family you should visit, right? And a daughter-in-law who gives birth to a girl is looked down upon. Hurry up and have a boy." "Having a girl is embarrassing to even mention," she said harshly. I couldn't hide my shock at her words. Just being born healthy is a miracle, regardless of gender. It's unreasonable to dismiss the fact that the grandchild is a girl and even demand a boy next. "What are you saying? Nicole is perfectly healthy and adorable, resembling Eric. Gender isn't an issue." I couldn't remain silent. Nicole was wrapped in a cute white dress, looking absolutely adorable. I might be biased, but even neighbors and friends say she's very cute and they're excited to see what her future holds. Having a male child is very important. A boy is seen as the heir to the family. "You wanted a girl? It's a daughter-in-law's duty to have a boy," she stated without any sign of remorse. As I was about to argue back, I heard Nicole's cry from afar and Eric came to call me. Though I was filled with anger and had a lot to say, hearing Nicole's voice calmed me a bit, and I thanked her before leaving. Her harsh words were hard to forget. Seeing my beloved daughter treated coldly just because of her gender, I pushed my mother-in-law to the back of my mind and focused on raising my daughter with love and support from Eric and my parents. Naturally, a distance grew between me and my mother-in-law, and since Eric's family home was far, we rarely visited, only making it a yearly tradition to visit during Christmas. As Nicole grew less dependent, roles within the household shifted. The household chores at Eric's family home became my responsibility. especially during Christmas. There was frequent interaction with the locals. I had to prepare drinks, alcohol, and meals depending on the time for many guests. Naturally, cleaning up was also my responsibility, and I spent most days busy without much rest. Despite this, my mother-in-law told visiting people, she is incompetent, only able to produce one girl. She's a failure for not having a boy. Eric and I had hoped for about 3 children, but after Nicole, there were no more pregnancies. Though we had decided to let nature take its course. Being blamed as if I had intentionally only had a girl pained my heart deeply. Exhausted by my mother-in-law's attitude and disheartened in the kitchen, my sister-in-law came in and comforted me. Don't mind her. She's always like this. We have a boy, and you shouldn't worry. I actually wanted a girl too. I'm envious, my sister-in-law said. She has 2 sons who are close in age to Nicole, and they always play well together. My sister-in-law married a local childhood friend, and because he was the second son and the older brother had moved to the city, she took over the family home. Her casual support helped me get through these days. Thank you, really. It reassures me to hear you say that. I might be biased, but Nicole is very cute. I'm glad she's a girl, I said as her children came running up. She said, sorry to leave the household chores to you. I'm going to check on the kids, and left the room. Soon after, my mother-in-law entered and shouted, this is no time to rest. Hurry up and clean up. We need to prepare for the next guests. Useless daughter-in-law, maybe it's because you were raised in the city. Filled with utter frustration at her words, I encouraged myself to endure just a bit longer and proceeded to the guest room. My daughter eventually grew up and got married. Her husband is a junior at my workplace, a calm and capable young man. I am confident that he will take good care of my daughter. Every time I look at the empty room after Nicole moved out, I feel a sense of loneliness, but she keeps in touch with us regularly through social media. We often visited Nicole's home and spent quality time with her husband. Sometimes my parents joined us, and those were truly happy times. One day, Eric said, my mom has fallen and been taken to the hospital. I'll go to my parents' house for a while. There was no warning the day before, so this news was surprising. I asked him why, and it turned out that Eric had been secretly communicating daily with his mother via social media without my knowledge for nearly 30 years. I was dumbfounded by the revelation that my husband had kept this from me for so long. However, even after being treated coldly, it's natural to be worried upon hearing that his mother was injured. Despite my doubts about Eric's ongoing communication with his mother, I was concerned about her condition. Hoping her injuries were minor, I worried all day and left work early to return home. Eric hadn't returned yet, so I watched TV and had a simple dinner while waiting for his call. My phone rang after a while and Eric said, hello, Kathy, it's me. Mom's okay, so don't worry. She's staying in the hospital tonight just to be safe, but she hasn't broken anything. She's expected to be discharged tomorrow. But there's something I need to discuss. I was relieved to hear his mother was safe, but his next words took me by surprise. It turns out she's been badly treated by my sister and brother-in-law, so I've decided to bring her here to live with us after she's discharged. Dad will continue to live there, he explained. I couldn't comprehend what he was saying. Even though I understood that his mother would be moving in with us, it was too much for me to accept emotionally. Caught off guard by this sudden proposal, I responded, what do you mean? Wasn't your mother supposed to continue living there? This sudden suggestion of living together is troubling. We had agreed not to live together originally. From the beginning of our marriage, we had agreed not to live together, and Eric knew this. Moreover, his sister had assured us, don't worry, we will take care of this house and our parents. I was shocked by the sudden proposal, feeling like the ground was slipping beneath me. However, she has been receiving harsh words from my sister for a long time. This is abuse. It's the first time I've seen Mom so worn out. I can't bring her back to that house. Since Nicole's room is available, it would be best for her to move there, Eric insisted. Eric seemed unwilling to budge. But remembering the harsh treatment I had received in the past, I couldn't accept living together. Indeed, Nicole's room was available, but it still contained her belongings, and it was intended for her to use when she and her husband visited. That room was supposed to be available for Nicole when she visits. It's simply not possible to have your mother move in. I have work, and you do too, Eric. We can't leave your mother alone during the day, I strongly argued back. It was impractical to leave his mother alone in our house during the day. Look at the reality. I can't just send my troubled mother back. I've saved up some paid leave to take care of her for a while. I'll try not to burden you, Eric said. He was prepared for long-term care, but eventually, he would have to return to work. At that point, the responsibility of caregiving would likely fall to me. Nicole had just married, and I was looking forward to finding new hobbies and enjoying myself. But those plans were crumbling. Furthermore, given the treatment at Eric's family home, it's clear that living at our house would not be fulfilling. The daily chores like cleaning, laundry, and cooking would require more effort than ever, and I would need to accompany her to the store and doctor's visits. Considering this situation, living together was unrealistic. Eric, it's impossible for you to take a long leave, and what will we do if something happens when we are not here? The worries about adapting to a new environment were endless. If my father-in-law decided to continue living at their original home, in effect, they would be living separately. Stop fussing. I'm even considering early retirement. The company has offered an increase in severance pay for early retirees. So, I plan to quit and take care of my mother, Eric asserted. I was shocked by his sudden decision and disappointed by the shallowness of his plans. We had initially planned to work until the age of 65 together. Wait a minute. Don't make decisions on your own without discussing it. I can't accept unreasonable demands. Why not send your mother back to her home and wait until things stabilize there? Living together is impossible. Have you forgotten the conditions we agreed upon before getting married? I protested. We couldn't have a calm conversation. Eric and I were both trembling with anger. How long have we been discussing this topic? I've decided. I've already told the company that I'll be using up my paid leave. I've also finished consulting about early retirement during that time. Always opposing me. I didn't think you were such a cold person. Don't get carried away, or it's divorce. Eric shouted. Although I was surprised by his remark, I wouldn't regret leaving the house if we couldn't live together. If his mother was coming, perhaps separation was also an option. I decided to think about divorce later. Fine. If you choose your mother, then I'm leaving. I declared and ended the call. Once my decision was made, I acted quickly. I had intended to think it over thoroughly, but once I made up my mind, I downloaded the divorce papers and filled out what I could. I left them conspicuously on the living room table. I packed my bags, informed Nicole about the recent events, and asked to stay at her place until I found a new one. Nicole kindly responded, "Stay as long as you need, and if necessary, I'll come to pick you up with the car." I packed all my belongings into bags and left the divorce papers clearly visible. It was sad to leave behind the furniture, appliances, and dishes I loved, but I had limited luggage I could carry and had to move out quickly, so I had no choice. I expressed my gratitude to Nicole and her spouse, borrowed a room to store my belongings, and we talked about the events of the night until late. The next day around noon, when I turned my smartphone back on, I unexpectedly found numerous missed calls. Upon checking them, I saw they were all from Eric, which confused me as it felt like monitoring. Just then, my phone rang again. "Why did you leave the house? And why are the divorce papers on the table?" "My mom says she's hungry. Can you make her something to eat?" Had Eric forgotten our conversation from the previous night? Not even noticing the divorce papers, only worrying about his mother's meal. What kind of nerve was that? "I told you yesterday, we're getting divorced. I can't deal with your unreasonable demands anymore. I'll hand over the shared bank account information, and I'm letting go of the house and all our belongings. I want to avoid disputes over asset division and compensation. Make sure you file the divorce papers," I said and ended the call. Right after ending the call, my phone rang again. Don't call anymore. I'm at work right now. I briefly refused and set my phone to block his calls. I felt more disgust than sadness toward such a disgraceful husband. I never thought divorce would feel this easy. I had expected to be sadder and more depressed, but surprisingly, I felt refreshed. Perhaps my dissatisfaction with my husband was deeper than I thought. After a while, I might settle down and be overwhelmed by loneliness. Anyway, I was determined to move forward without looking back, but Nicole's offer to take your time, let's live together, moved me, and as a result, I continued living at my daughter's home. 2 months after leaving the house, my ex-husband contacted Nicole's home. Nicole, is your mom there? I need to talk to her for a bit. Could you call her for me? Nicole sensed something was wrong and handed the phone to me, saying, Dad seems to be in a serious situation. 2 months had passed, and I wondered why there was such urgency. Good evening. It's been a while. How have you been? I greeted him, and he replied immediately. Hey, Kathy. I got a sudden call today saying the mortgage payment was missed. What's going on? The payment should have already been made from our joint account. We pay the electricity bill from that account too, right? They told me that if it's delayed further, they might seize the property. During our marriage, all living expenses were paid from that joint account. This included the mortgage, utilities, food expenses, and credit card payments. We each deposited $1,500 per month into that account, totaling $3,000 every month. Thanks to this, we had some financial flexibility, and our savings had gradually increased. However, after the divorce, I stopped all deposits, so I'm not aware of the current account status. It's hard for me to say what to do. I don't know the balance of the joint account anymore. I haven't made any deposits since the divorce. Unless you have been wasting money, there shouldn't be a reason for it to run out so quickly. There was a sudden gasp from the other end of the phone. It seemed he had just realized that the balance was dangerously low because I had stopped transferring money and he had quit his job. His mother staying over also probably led to additional expenses like buying new furniture and eating out frequently, which caused a considerable amount in expenditure. To tell you the truth, the divorce hasn't been finalized yet. I still have the divorce papers with me. I can't stand your selfish behavior anymore. Please come back home. If you return, even Mom will forgive you, he said. I couldn't believe the divorce wasn't finalized yet. His behavior, as if I should forgive everything, infuriated me. Eric and his mother might be able to forgive, but I can't and won't put up with it. He was still talking, but Eric's words didn't register with me. I still love you, and we were happy when we were together. You still have feelings for me, he claimed, stating things contrary to the facts. It doesn't matter what the situation is over there. I want a divorce and consider it already finalized. You should get along well with your mother. Handle any financial worries between yourselves, I made it clear. Even if they were struggling with money and a place to live, that was no longer my problem. Understood? Then, I'm going to Nicole's house with Mom right now. We'll sit down and resolve this, he said angrily and hung up. I immediately contacted Nicole and her husband to explain the situation. They promised to handle it calmly. I felt embarrassed and sorry for causing trouble for my daughter and her husband. Nicole's husband reassured me, "Don't worry. Please, take it easy." Eventually, Eric and his mother arrived. It's been a while, Kathy. Why aren't you taking care of your husband's parents? It's not right for Eric to struggle, she said without greeting Nicole and her husband. Grandma, good evening. It's not just Mom here. I'm here too. Please stop getting angry without even properly greeting first. This is my house, so please follow our rules, Nicole responded firmly. This was the first time I saw my daughter stand up so assertively. The little girl who once needed protection had grown into a confident, independent adult. Grandma, Dad, please come this way. I'll show you to the living room, Nicole said, taking the lead like a teacher managing a classroom. Everyone, please take a seat. First of all, Grandma, what are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be living with your daughter? Nicole began to take charge. My mother-in-law muttered in a low voice, acting all high and mighty at such a young age. Who do you think you are? So, what's the matter? Dad, why did you suddenly bring Grandma here? Eric quietly replied, well, because she's my mom. I yelled so loudly and no one is answering me. What's going on? Kathy, do you have anything to say? Disappointed with Eric and his mother, who were hesitant to speak clearly, they started talking to me. I do have something to say. Eric, I used to deposit $1,500 into our joint account every month. If you didn't live extravagantly, that should have been enough for a while. If it ran out, you could use your retirement funds or savings, no? Also, Mother, I'm not just a maid. You can't just use me however you want. Once I started talking, I couldn't stop. I hadn't realized until now just how deep my grievances with Eric were. Eric himself, not expecting me to speak so frankly, stood there with his mouth agape in surprise. His mother was shaking with anger over my unexpected remarks. If you give up that apartment, you could get a significant amount of money. Eric manages it, so I'll leave the decision to him. Just be careful about changing the deed because it might incur a gift tax. Also, please manage the property tax by yourselves. Mother, if you can move around, you should at least do some housework. Why did you leave your home anyway? I couldn't help wanting to know why she had left. She had been living there for so long, with her husband, daughter-in-law, and even her proud grandsons. Yet she suddenly left, and I didn't understand why. Please stop raising your voice. My daughter has been harsh on me. It feels like she's bullying an old woman. I couldn't feel at ease at home, and when I fell, no one cared, she said pitifully. I felt nauseated at this sight. Just then, stop saying such shameful things. Just stop. You've always been so selfish, Mom. I can't believe it. Lying and seeking sympathy won't work. You should just give up and go back home, came the voice of Eric's sister from my smartphone. We had been on a speakerphone call with her. My sister-in-law, unable to bear her mother's words, had spoken up. She was direct and rational, saying things without reservation, which must have been hard for my mother-in-law to endure. On the other hand, her son spoiled his mother, quickly forgiving her at the slightest tear. You were always so harsh. Eric is kind and always cares about me. It's just this incompetent wife complaining. We are living happily here, his mother retorted. Essentially, she had fled here to escape conflicts with her daughter. It's also ridiculous. Eric being dragged into such problems was due to his naivety and dependency on his mother. It seems Eric is waiting for you at home. Lucky you. We plan to sell this residence as well, so it would be ideal for you and Eric to go back home after clearing up. Since Eric quit his job, he has time on his hands. Helping with farm work back home would be best for him, I said to them, smiling brightly. They looked at me seriously. As they gazed at me, I pulled out a document. Eric, this time I will make sure the divorce papers are filed. If you delay, the division of assets will be firmly decided through a lawyer. I won't ask for compensation, but the division of assets is inevitable. What shall we do? With a look that felt like checkmate, I gave them a cold stare. I wanted to make a decision today. Eric sighed and finally signed the divorce papers. His mother continued to shout, "Heartless woman. Horrible wife abusing the elderly. Grandma, this is my last request. Don't forget how you always treated Mom harshly just because she had a girl and neglected me while giving toys and sweets to Aunt's sons. You never even gave me a single candy. Now that this talk is over, I want to say goodbye. Please leave this room quickly. I don't want to see you ever again, and you won't see your great-grandchildren," Nicole said tearfully but strongly. For a long time, I had been consumed by my own emotions, but learning how my daughter had been mistreated by her grandmother, I felt angry. My daughter's words are everything. Mother, please do not come here ever again. Eric, this is the end for us too. If I have to contact you about anything, I'll call Tracy, I said. Rejected by both me and Nicole, Eric and his mother left dejectedly. As the solution became clear, I felt relieved speaking with Nicole, her husband, and my sister-in-law over the phone, grateful for their support, and looked forward to filing the divorce papers tomorrow. It had taken some time since that phone call, but everything had finally been resolved. After selling the house, my ex-husband and his mother returned to their hometown. The farm work kept them very busy, and my sister-in-law was pleased to have additional help. Physical labor was a challenge for my indoorsy ex-husband. My mother-in-law did simple tasks in the garden and household chores. They would learn the value of hard work through these difficult tasks. This seemed suitable for them. Meanwhile, as I felt awkward living long-term at my daughter's house, I moved to a nearby apartment. I planned to help my busy daughter as much as possible. Nicole was pregnant and expected to give birth in 6 months. I would become a grandmother, and as long as the baby was healthy, the gender didn't matter to me. Every day, I eagerly awaited seeing my grandchild's face as I walked firmly on my own feet. I've just realized your lack of heart. I will live with my parents in this house, so please leave. Ever since we got married, Scott, who has always relied on me, is now trying to kick me out of the house. Even though I pay $3,000 a month in rent, I've reached my limit. I had been considering divorce for a while, but Scott's remarks have solidified my decision. I understand. I will leave this house. Yes, get out quickly. I'm going out now. I'll be back tomorrow evening, but please pack your things and leave by then. Are you sure you don't need to check what I'm taking? Don't touch my equipment. You can do whatever you want with the other stuff. It seems I am free to handle the things in the house. In that case, I might need to call a jink removal service. And while I'm at it, I'll make sure Scott gets a taste of his own medicine. I work as a researcher at a major company. Having graduated from graduate school, I am 29 years old, entrusted with a responsible job appropriate for my age, and I have a decent income. As a result, I am able to live in a luxury apartment that costs $3,000 a month in rent. I am also married to Scott, and we live with our son Tyler. From the outside, it might seem like I lead a fulfilling life. There are people who struggle with their living situation or food, or those who are elderly and live alone, so I feel fortunate. Yet, I have my own concerns. The monthly rent of $3,000 is a strain on our budget. My income is decent, but honestly, the $3,000 rent is a significant burden. You're sounding like an old woman again with all your complaining. Scott is the source of my worries. If he worked properly, I wouldn't have to worry about the rent. However, he is a part-time worker dreaming of becoming a musician. He is pursuing a path as a musician but is already 30 years old. Scott used to be somewhat popular and participated in various events. However, entertaining a few hundred people at a live house doesn't provide enough income to make a living, so in reality, he leads an unstable life as a part-timer. When I was younger, I saw him shine as he chased his dreams. Scott, it seems I'm pregnant. Really? Wonderful. I'll work hard for our future child. I was 19 years old when I married him, and we started a family. Getting married meant he would have to give up his dreams of music and choose a life with his family. I had begun to question his perpetual part-time lifestyle, but I felt guilty asking him to give up his dreams for the family. However, my thoughts seemed meaningless. After our child was born, Scott continued his music and part-time jobs. I couldn't tolerate it anymore and warned him. How long do you plan to keep up the part-time jobs? You're nearly 20, you know? People your age are job hunting. I have my own way of living. Please don't compare me to others. Your words sound noble but lack conviction. If you want to speak from such a position, contribute to the household finances first. When I become famous, I'll make up for the earnings I'm missing out on now. Stop being so dreamy and face reality. With that, he had no rebuttal and eventually started a part-time job. Even earning $1,000 a month would be helpful. But Scott didn't stop talking about his dreams. You're being noisy. Times are different now. There are many paths to success without belonging to an agency. So, I'm not just dreaming anymore. It's just that my name isn't widely known yet. Companies have overwhelming power in advertising. However, I am making steady progress, even if it's slow. No matter how much I hear, it's baffling. When will he realize that it's all an illusion? Scott's band has already disbanded, and the former members have either married or found jobs. I think Scott should follow their example. Yet, Scott says, "You've given up your dreams." That's pathetic. I think giving up dreams to protect the family is a meaningful choice. But is that wrong? When I was pregnant, Scott said he would work hard for our child, but it seems he meant continuing his music career. However, I hope that once our child grew a bit more, Scott would see reality. Did you buy expensive clothes again? Appearance is important for my job. He hasn't earned a single dollar from music, yet what is he talking about? 10 years have passed since our child was born, and Scott is still a part-timer as he approaches his 30s. Despite a long music career, he sees himself as mid-tier without any notable success or achievements, which has led to increased spending on expensive clothes and music equipment. I wish you would contribute a bit to the household instead of spending money on such things. You can satisfy hunger with pretense, you know? What do you mean by such things? These are necessary for me. Since Scott always has this attitude, we frequently argue. To avoid showing our child the arguments, we choose times when he's not at home to talk, or we move to another room if possible. But the house is small, so our child inevitably hears us if our voices get loud. Therefore, we are considering moving to a bigger house. As our son grows, our current residence will definitely become too cramped. Hey, Tyler is 10 now, and this apartment is too cramped, so shall we move? Yeah, this was originally the house you lived in alone, after all. What? Do you have a complaint? You moved into my house when we got married, right? It's not a complaint. I'd like to move, preferably to a bigger house. Living in a high-rise condo would be cool, I think. What? Who do you think will pay the rent? I will contribute to the household too. I can handle the rent, but I'll help with electricity, gas, and groceries. Please, I really want to live in a high-rise condo. It should be possible to live in a high-rise condominium with my salary. Moreover, it's heartening that Scott, who has never contributed to our finances, has offered to help. This might be the trigger for him to face reality. By paying for electricity and gas, he might understand the daily struggles and the value of money. Okay, I'll look for a place then. I'll pay the rent, so no complaints about the property I choose. Agreed. Anything is okay if it's in a high-rise condo. I leave it all up to you. Despite these hopes, living in the high-rise condo began with Scott ultimately betraying my expectations again. A year after moving, Scott is still pursuing music at 30 and has not kept any of the promises he made when we moved. Hey, the gas bill has arrived. Please pay it before it's debited from my account. I'll give it to you next time. I don't have it right now. When is next time? You always say that, but then you don't pay. You're always fussing about money. Is money really that important? All I asked for was the minimum amount necessary for our living expenses. Why should I have to be scolded? He was supposed to have promised to pay in the first place. It was a good decision to set up direct debits from my own account. Otherwise, Scott might never have paid the electricity and gas bills. Sometimes, however, Scott does pay some money. What? There's $50 on the living room table. It was left by Scott, but he isn't home now. $50 is nowhere near enough. But I thought he left this amount to avoid handing it over directly to me, perhaps out of embarrassment. Is he showing some consideration? There's something endearing about that. It seems I was mistaken to think so. I haven't received this month's electricity bill payment yet. I pay it sometimes, don't I? It seems he only wants to feel like he's paying by occasionally handing over a few tens of dollars. To top it off, he lies and asks for money. I want to take my parents on a trip. Can you lend me some money? Okay, will $50 be enough? I appreciate it. Scott sometimes tells lies, but I know it's a sign that he wants some pocket money. He also knows that I understand he's asking for pocket money. Because of this, our conversations can be hard to understand when he asks for money. Such exchanges happen frequently because he often asks me for money. He probably uses the pocket money to treat his juniors or to show off. The rent is still $3,000 this month. It's tough. The rent for the high-rise condo we moved to is $3,000, which is certainly not cheap. I thought moving to a high-rise condo might motivate Scott to work, but he always disappoints me, and I have been struggling with the rent for 3 years. I can save money in this situation. Ideally, I'd like to use money for more meaningful purposes, like our child's future or for retirement. I've considered divorce before, but it seems it's time to seriously think about it. Then Scott made a remark that made me decide on divorce. Hey, we have an unused room, right? I was thinking of clearing it out and making it into a room for my parents. What do you think? A room for your parents, as in living together? What brought this on all of a sudden? My parents are getting older, so we can't just leave them be. His words sound noble, but Scott lacks the ability to follow through. Who does he think is paying the rent for this high-rise condo? Moreover, I'm also bearing the cost of living expenses and our son's education. Furthermore, the idea of being forced to live with my in-laws is absolutely unacceptable. I'm absolutely opposed. You don't need to answer so quickly. Think about it a bit. I oppose. Why are you so firm? What's wrong with filial piety? Are you telling me to abandon my parents? You're heartless. If you only hear this conversation, it might seem like I am selfishly refusing to live with them. But that's not the case. The problem is entirely with Scott. If we start living together, I can clearly see a future where he dumps all the responsibility for his parents on me. So I firmly refuse. I absolutely cannot live together. I see how heartless you are. I will live in this house with my parents, so you need to leave. Ever since we got married, Scott has been dependent on me, and now he's trying to kick me out of the house. Even though I'm paying $3,000 a month in rent, I want to make him aware of his helplessness and lack of achievements. He ordered me out of the house with unreasonable anger. I've reached my limit. I had been considering divorce for a while, but Scott's remarks have solidified my decision. Understood. I will leave this house. Yes, get out quickly. I'm going out now. I'll be back tomorrow evening, but please pack your things and leave by then. Are you sure you don't need to check what I'm taking? Don't touch my equipment. You can do whatever you want with the other stuff. Scott left the house after his final remark. It seems I am free to handle the things in the house. Mom, I'll help you. And I'll go with you, too. Thank you. My son came out of his room and offered words of comfort. Whenever there was a marital dispute, our son always went to another room. Creating a situation that makes our child feel the need to be cautious is heartbreaking for me as a parent. Our 13-year-old son used to enjoy playing with his father and liked him a lot when he was younger and didn't understand the situation. But from upper elementary school, he began to grasp the situation and started supporting me. Where should we start cleaning up? Tyler, start with your own things. I have something else I want to do. What? A scheme? I just want to give him a little shock. I took out my cell phone and called a specific place. Hello, I'm sorry for the urgency, but could you please help us tomorrow? After we finished organizing, my son and I decided to stay temporarily in a business hotel with only the essentials. We'll have to look for a new place to live. That night, knowing that Scott would call, we placed my smartphone on the table and quietly waited for the call. The smartphone rang and we looked at each other before I answered. Hey, what's going on here? What are you doing? What do you mean? What's the problem? Seeing Scott's panic, my son and I couldn't help but laugh. All my clothes and equipment are here, but everything else is gone. What happened to the tables and the fridge? Did you take them? No, I arranged for a junk removal service to dispose of everything. By now, it might already be burned. Tyler, are you there too? When my son intervened and spoke up, Scott was even more surprised. He probably didn't realize that Tyler was still at home and was shocked by the nearly empty house. What do you mean everything is disposed of? These furniture and appliances, I bought them, right? Well, they could be considered marital property. You said I could do whatever I wanted with everything except your equipment, so I just did that. But how am I supposed to live now? If you need to, you can just buy new ones. For now, why not use your amp as a chair or wrap a towel around your guitar for a pillow? That's not funny. To do such a nasty thing. We're getting a divorce. Yes, I understand. What? Scott probably thought I would be at least a little shaken by the mention of divorce. He might have also thought that this was just part of another marital argument. But I had already considered divorce, and his words held no threat for me. In fact, I was almost grateful that he brought it up. Really? You understand? We're getting a divorce, a divorce. You don't need to say it multiple times. I understand. I deliberately responded in a calm and cold tone. This should convey that I am serious about the divorce. Scott must realize that he would be the one to suffer from the divorce. Therefore, when he impulsively mentioned divorce and I accepted it, he clearly panicked. Yes, that's right. Scott seemed too flustered to find his next words. Normally, he would apologize and back down. However, perhaps due to his nature as a musician, he can't take back what he said. I know this character trait all too well. Once, I found that attitude appealing, but now it just seems ridiculous. We'll discuss the details of the divorce later, but you're planning to live with your parents in that house, right? Should I go to the real estate agent first to review the contract? Yeah. If the contract is changed to my name, the divorce cannot be undone. This is your chance to apologize. Well, maybe. It might have been a desperate attempt to resist, but Scott's voice was trembling. He might think that throwing out the furniture and appliances was my plan to move towards divorce. However, the grievances built up over 13 years of marriage won't just disappear so easily. I wish Scott would struggle a bit more. A few days later, Scott and I went to the real estate office to review the contract for the condo. My procedure is now complete. I was able to smoothly terminate the contract. However, when Scott tried to sign a new contract, a problem arose. What? The rent is $3,000? Scott's face turned pale. When I had made the contract for the high-rise condo, he had left everything from selecting the property to the contracting process up to me, and he was unaware of the details. It's impossible to pay such high rent. Even if I include my father and mother, he was astonished. What a situation. It seems that after I left, Scott planned to seek financial support from his parents. He thought that the three of them could somehow manage the rent, but the actual rent was beyond his expectations. Since the in-laws are pensioners and Scott himself is a non-regular employee, I foresaw that it would be difficult for the three of them to share the costs and make payments. Really? You've been paying this for a year? Scott asked, and I replied, yes, I've been paying this amount all along. Since you don't work, we haven't been able to save anything. I can handle such a contract. Don't worry. I don't think you can handle the contract, I responded. What do you mean? He seemed confused. He appeared to be so flustered that he had completely forgotten the rules for renting a home. I asked the real estate agent to help Scott understand the situation. Excuse me, is it possible for someone with an irregular income of $1,200 per month to sign a contract for this property? The parents will pay the shortfall. No, that would be a bit difficult. The applicant needs to have a certain level of income. See, I told you that you wouldn't be able to pass the screening, I said. The agent, hearing our conversation, probably sensed that we were going to part ways. He responded to my questions with a wry smile, unable to say much. So, what should I do now? If you can't make the contract, you have no choice but to leave, right? There are no other options since I've already canceled that contract. Wow, you've done something ridiculous again. Scott, who calls himself an artist, has an unnecessarily high self-esteem and likes to show off. It must have been a huge embarrassment for him, with his low income and a looming divorce, to be manipulated by me and to have others know about his situation. His face was drenched in sweat and as red as if he had just run a full marathon in midsummer. Ignoring my husband, I continued talking to the agent. It seems that things didn't go as planned, and the contract is impossible now. We need to move out immediately, right? I'm sorry for the confusion, but there's hardly any belongings left, just some clothes and music equipment. It's a small enough amount to clean up quickly. So could you check the procedures for moving out later? You knew I didn't understand the rent or the conditions of the house, and you still went ahead with this? Scott said, what do you mean? When I asked if you wanted to review the contract, you said you would handle it yourself. Whether you can fulfill the contract is not my concern. I replied, don't lie. You know about my income, Scott said. I was hoping there might be a way for the contract to succeed, I answered. Don't joke. I'm not leaving here. Scott insisted. If you don't leave, I'll call the police. I don't know the legal details, but you might be sued for trespassing or failure to vacate. Oh, and since this isn't my property anymore, the real estate agency or the owner might take some action. It could get messy if a company reports it, I said. The agent looked on worriedly. I truly felt sorry for causing inconvenience. You don't want to be embarrassed any further, right? Go home now and pack your things, I told Scott. Scott left the real estate office without saying a word. I'm sorry. The house will be empty soon. If anything is left, I'll take responsibility for disposing of it, I said. Later, when the agent and I went to the house, it was already empty. Later, to apologize for the inconvenience, I brought sweets to the real estate office. The procedure itself would be fine if handled well, but the agent seemed confused by the very awkward situation. I am truly sorry. However, this brought the dreamy musician back to the real world. Now, he must strive to do well in the real world. After he left the house, our divorce was officially finalized. My ex-husband had no financial leeway, and since I had spent most of my money on rent, there was no dispute over the division of assets. My son chose to stay with me. My ex-husband might have sought support from his parents, but I had already blocked that path. After about 10 years of marriage, I informed my in-laws of the divorce and made my greetings. I thought it was only natural to communicate this process to my in-laws. Upon learning of my ex-husband's past actions, my in-laws decided to distance themselves from him and to withhold support until he finds a job and becomes independent. As a result, the plan for my ex-husband to live with his parents was canceled. Therefore, my ex-husband could no longer rely on his parents. Over 30 years old and having lived as a freelancer, it is difficult for him to find regular employment, and he is still working as a freelancer. His income remains low, and he struggles even to pay the rent for a cheap apartment. Under these circumstances, continuing music is almost impossible. This is the reality of my ex-husband, who achieved nothing. I have rented a new apartment and am living there with my son. After my husband left, the rent decreased, allowing me to utilize my funds more beneficially. While I don't deny the pursuit of dreams, living comfortably with my son under the current circumstances is what makes me happiest. A lazy wife who neglects her chores like this should leave the house. My mother-in-law said, I am being blamed. My mother-in-law looked at me with a stern gaze. My sister-in-law said, I will take care of Mom and Scott, so you are not needed here. You always look so tired and gloomy. My sister-in-law, who does no household work at all, said this with a look of disdain. Wait, Scott, your mother and sister are too cruel. I sought help from my husband, but he too spoke with contempt. Just as Mom and sister said, a wife who is only focused on work and cannot do household chores is of no use. Besides, I'm now in a good relationship with a young part-timer, so you are no longer needed. Pack your things and leave quickly. I was stunned while the three of them cast at me to get out of the house. While listening to their words, I looked down and clenched my fists tightly. Still, I tried to remain as calm as possible and said understood. I will leave. The downfall of the family that has always put everything on me is about to begin. My name is Kristen. I am 32 years old, working at a company while taking care of my family. Nowadays, most women continue to work after marriage, and since I'm passionate about my job, I have continued to work at the company I joined as a new graduate. During a busy morning preparation, my husband started a conversation. Hey Kristen, can you take care of this? The deadline for the tax return is approaching. He handed me a pile of bills and receipts. Again? I wish you'd handle your own shop's accounts. I replied seriously, but Scott averted his gaze. You know I'm not good at this kind of detailed work, right? You're always a big help, thank you. Scott and I got married 5 years ago. He was working at a restaurant I frequented, and our conversation there led to us getting along. As we got to know each other better, we started dating and eventually got married. Scott has fulfilled his long-term dream of opening a cafe and is currently running it. However, when it comes to the tedious tasks like buy-in, office work, and accounting, he tends to rely on me just like with the taxes. Sighing, I headed towards the entrance when my mother-in-law approached me. Kristen, I feel like eating Chinese today. Can you take care of it? Understood. Could you please wash the rice instead? My mother-in-law frowned and said, Why do I have to do it? I don't want to. You should come home early and take care of it. Also, Jenny and the kids will be back this weekend, so please prepare meals that the children can eat. What? Okay, understood. I reluctantly answered and left the scene. When Scott and I got married, I had hoped for a life with just the two of us. However, Scott had a different idea. Scott said, My father passed away, and my sister is already married, so I'm worried about leaving Mom alone. Since the house is big, I think it's good for us to live together. I had no choice but to agree. As a result, we started living in my mother-in-law's house with her. When we first started living with my mother-in-law, who is not good at household chores, the house was quite messy. After my father-in-law passed away, my mother-in-law had been living on her pension alone. That pension was mostly used for eating out, as she hated cooking. Scott sees household chores as a woman's job and shows no willingness to help. While continuing to work full-time, I am responsible for all the household chores. Jenny, my sister-in-law, also comes back often with her children even after getting married and leaving the house. When she comes over, the burden of household chores naturally doubles. This morning, when I heard that they would be coming over this weekend, I thought to myself, not again. While thinking about this, the dreaded weekend arrived. Ideally, weekends away from work should be a time to rest, but when Jenny's children come asking to play, it's hard to say no. While taking care of the children all by myself, I also need to prepare meals. In the midst of this business, my sister-in-law made an unexpected statement. Kristen, I'm actually in the midst of getting a divorce and will be staying here with the children starting next month. Hope to get along with you. I hadn't heard about that. I answered in surprise. What's the matter? Do you have a problem with it? In response to my sister-in-law's dissatisfied reply, I hurriedly answered, no, it's not like that. Rather, that must have been hard going through a divorce. When are you planning to move in? I asked. The sooner the better, she answered. Knowing that my sister-in-law and her children would be coming back, I was initially bewildered but soon tried to think positively. Since my sister-in-law was a full-time housewife, I thought she would surely be a help with household chores. I hoped that my burden would be lessened. Although I am not particularly close to my sister-in-law, I was hopeful that my load would be lighter. However, that hope was quickly shattered. Perhaps due to being raised by my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law also did not help with any household chores, spending all day in front of the TV and eating snacks. She did not engage in any domestic or external work. I heard that a major factor behind her divorce was her neglect of household duties. I ended up doing the household chores instead of my sister-in-law, as well as preparing meals for her children who are picky eaters. Additionally, preparing for kindergarten drop-offs also became my role. As time went on, I became busier with a new project at work. This led to more days requiring late-night overtime and early morning starts. Upon returning home, the place was so messy that finding a spot to step on the floor was difficult, and I was utterly exhausted. The minute I would come back from work, my family would complain, "Isn't dinner ready yet? Why are you so late?" As I struggled to manage household chores due to my busy schedule, I began receiving harsh comments from my mother and sister-in-law. My mother-in-law said, "The laundry is piling up. Don't cut corners just because you're busy with work." I replied, "Mother, I'm also busy with work." My sister-in-law criticized, "Look how defiant she is towards her mother-in-law. Kristen is scary. And the meals are already made, poor kids. Since you are also home all the time, could you perhaps help a little?" I suggested. Then, my mother-in-law said, "Why would you make Jenny work? Besides, since Scott is a business owner, you shouldn't have to work. If you insist on working, you should at least manage household chores perfectly." I was speechless at her statement, but they looked at me as if it was obvious. That night, feeling at my limit, I talked to Scott. I said, "Even though I understand that work is busy, your mother and sister won't help at all. I'm at my limit." Scott retorted with a glare, "Are you trying to badmouth my mother and sister?" I replied, "It's not like that, but managing everything alone is impossible. I wish at least you would support me. I'm busy with the business. You might not understand since you're just an employee, but running a store is really hard. Don't make your work my burden." Still, as I was at a loss for words, Scott fell asleep then and there, leaving me to ponder alone again. However, shortly after, a good idea came to me. I quickly completed some online shopping, then took the rest of the day off. A few days later, various new household appliances were delivered to our home. I bought a drum washing machine, a cleaning robot, and kitchen appliances that cook automatically. Since there was no one to help with household chores, I wanted to reduce the burden as much as possible. Therefore, I decided to introduce the latest household appliances to make life more convenient. While the washing machine was being delivered, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law came over. "Did you buy a new washing machine without asking? The old one still works." My mother-in-law approached me with a look of dissatisfaction. "But this will make laundry much easier and faster," I replied cheerfully. However, my mother-in-law seemed unconvinced and continued, "What is this? A cleaning robot and kitchen appliances too? Kristen, come here." I was summoned to the living room where my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were sitting, and I was instructed to sit on the floor. Scott was also there, sitting confidently next to my mother-in-law. When I asked, "What's the matter?" my mother-in-law exclaimed loudly, "What do you mean, what's the matter? Buying appliances to make it easier for you with the household money? What were you thinking?" "I'm not trying to be lazy. I just want to make household chores more efficient," I argued back. "It's not about that," my mother-in-law criticized. "People nowadays rely too much on machines for everything." Then my sister-in-law joined in. "Exactly, Kristen. The appliances are still good, and though Scott is a business owner, you're wasting too much money." While my sister-in-law glared at me, Scott also seemed to nod in agreement next to her. I tried to argue back regarding that, but my sister-in-law didn't let me finish, always looking for the easy way out. "And you can't even do household chores properly? What were you thinking?" She criticized me. Despite wanting to fight back, I remained silent. Angered by my silence, my mother-in-law couldn't hold back anymore and blurted out, "A lazy wife who neglects her chores like this should leave the house." Shocked by her words, I looked at my mother-in-law, who was glaring at me. "With Mom and Scott here, we don't need you." Always looking so tired and spreading gloom like a parasite, my sister-in-law hurled harsh words at me too. Her words were in a tone of utter disdain. "Wait, Scott, your mother and sister's way of speaking is too cruel. I sought Scott's support, but Scott scornfully replied, "What Mom and sister are saying is right. A wife who can't manage household chores is not needed." I stared at Scott in surprise, but he just sneered. "I run a business and have the freedom to spend money. A wife who shops selfishly just to make her own life easier is not needed." I couldn't hide my astonishment and said, "Why would you say that? I'm currently seeing a young part-timer. She's attractive, unlike you. Your presence is no longer needed. Pack your things and leave immediately." Scott coldly uttered those words. Stunned by his words, I was subjected to their criticism of being a failure of a wife. While listening to them, I looked down and clenched my fists in anger. After being used and then spoken to in such a manner, "I'll show them. I'll make them regret this," I vowed to myself. Facing them with as little change in expression as possible, I said quietly, "Understood. I will leave." "Finally got it, huh? We'll be better off without a useless wife," my mother-in-law said contemptuously. Ignoring her words, I took out something specific from the living room drawer. "Scott, let's get divorced," I said, presenting him with a pre-filled divorce form. Exhausted, I had prepared the divorce form in advance as insurance. "Huh, you had that prepared? Fine, I'll sign it. Don't blame me if you regret it," Scott said mockingly and signed the divorce form on the spot. That day, I packed all my belongings and moved to a short-stay apartment with the divorce form in hand. No one saw me off. Soon after, I submitted the divorce form to the city hall and rented an apartment in my name. Almost simultaneously with the divorce being finalized, I accepted a promotion opportunity I had previously turned down due to household responsibilities, finally becoming a manager. Achieving career advancement that I had long given up on further fueled my passion for work. An environment where no one hindered my tasks was my greatest joy. About a week after leaving the house, I started receiving calls from my former mother-in-law. However, I was busy and had no desire to speak with someone who had once looked down on me. Therefore, I consistently ignored her calls. A year passed, and one holiday while I was relaxing at home, I received another call from my former mother-in-law. This time, I decided to answer the phone and end it once and for all. "Hello? Kristen, you finally answered. You're terrible. How could you ignore my calls for a whole year?" I could hear my mother-in-law's flustered voice from the other end. "Do you need something?" I responded indifferently. "Well, first, how are you doing, Kristen? Are you doing well?" My mother-in-law asked as if probing. I answered, "How I am doing? I've rented an apartment for myself and am working hard. I've been promoted and my income has increased. I'm living a comfortable life. My former mother-in-law sounded a bit puzzled, but continued really. So, Creston, would you consider coming back? Trying to persuade me to come back. I felt a chill at her sugary voice but asked, why now? Actually, we're in a tight financial situation. I said coldly with a smile, I see. I heard Scott's Cafe is making less than $1,000 a month, and neither you nor your daughter are helping, right? You knew that. I was well aware that Scott's Cafe was only making about $800 a month in profit since I was in charge of the accounting. Despite boasting about being a business owner, Scott had not been managing sales or administrative tasks properly and seemed unaware of the reality. I was handling the accounting and buy-in, so I'm well aware of the situation. You should have said something. I had no idea that you were a manager at a major company and financially providing for us. Yes, indeed. I was contributing over $3,000 a month to the household. That was the basis of your living. I was aware that Scott's Cafe was hardly making any profit. Therefore, a significant portion of my income went to providing living expenses for my in-laws. After I left, Scott must have realized for the first time that he couldn't make ends meet with just his cafe's income. My former mother-in-law pleaded earnestly, Kristen, please, I want you to come back. By the way, how is Scott's Cafe doing now? I ignored my former mother-in-law's request and asked out of curiosity. That place might not last till next month. The part-timer has also left. That's to be expected. With such careless management, it's impossible to maintain the store. Who would want to work under someone who is high in self-esteem but slacks off on important tasks? As I laughingly spoke, my former mother-in-law was left speechless on the other end of the phone. Shall we end this conversation? I'll be busy from here on out. In a panicked tone, my former mother-in-law said, wait, since you left, the house has become a complete mess. A mess? What do you mean? I inquired. According to my former mother-in-law, the in-laws' house had become completely disorganized since there was no one to take care of the chores. With children around and no one to tidy up, the house was cluttered, no one was cooking, and they had to rely on eating out or buying meals, leading to increased food expenses. Additionally, the washing machine broke, and they had no funds to purchase a new one. My mother-in-law said, if only you had left those appliances behind. I counted, aren't those the appliances you called for being lazy? Why shouldn't I be able to take with me what I bought with my own money? I regret saying such things, but I never imagined that the house would change so much just because there was no one to do the chores. I confronted my former mother-in-law's angry demeanor. Why is it that 3 adults can't do household chores? What are my sister-in-law and Scott doing? My former mother-in-law spoke in a calm voice. Scott has been unsettled since the part-timer left and the cafe's income stopped. Since then, he just stays at home and doesn't help with anything. Oh, so much for being a business owner who could freely spend money, I replied sarcastically. Moreover, Jenny hasn't made any move towards employment and has abandoned household duties. On top of that, she keeps asking me for pocket money for herself and her children. My pension isn't enough to cover all this. I was told by your daughter that you didn't need me because she was there, right? My sharp retort was met with more sweet talk from my former mother-in-law. Kristen, please. I can't make ends meet with just my pension. I have no intention of returning. Nevertheless, it seems like your children are quite the parasites. Aren't they? I said, leaving my former mother-in-law without a rebuttal. As I was about to hang up, she pleaded even more. Kristen, we'll change our ways, so please come back and let's live happily like before. What? How can one live happily with an unwanted wife? I scoffed. After a moment of confusion, my former mother-in-law appealed further. I admit our mistakes. We're family, so let's help each other out. Without help, we won't be able to pay the property tax and we'll have to sell the house. I have no obligation or affection to extend my help. Please sort it out yourselves. With that, the unwanted wife will take her leave. Ignoring her screams, I turned off the phone and blocked my former mother-in-law's number. Relaxing at my clean home and enjoying a cup of coffee, a smile crossed my face. 3 months later, when I happened to pass by the location of Scott's former cafe, it was already an empty lot. The store had indeed closed. Furthermore, a sold sign was up at my former in-law's house. From a conversation with a neighbor I met by chance, I learned they had hurriedly sold the house and were now living a difficult life in a small apartment, causing trouble with daily arguments and unpleasant smells, and receiving numerous complaints from neighbors. It's so typical of them, not supporting themselves and their household through honest work and independence. I looked at my former in-law's house with a detached gaze and left. Meanwhile, I continued to focus on my work. Recently, a sincere and earnest colleague asked me out, and we started dating with marriage in mind. Remarriage doesn't seem to be that far away. This time, I truly hope I'll find happiness. It's unthinkable for someone without an academic background like you to teach. It will negatively affect her academics, so stay away. Upon learning that I was supporting my niece academically, my sister-in-law directed her anger at me. Sophia, why are you interacting with someone like her? What will you do if you end up like her? My sister-in-law seemed to perceive my presence as something harmful. Her cold attitude drained my patience. Amy, think before you speak. Who do you think contributes to our comfortable life? Isn't it because Mary works hard at home? In response to my mother-in-law's gentle words, my sister-in-law became even more emotional. Why are you defending her? Isn't it her duty to handle household chores? She's not just doing housework. She works hard and contributes a lot to the household. You just gallivant around without contributing. If anything, you should be grateful to Mary. Do you really believe she's working earnestly? I can't imagine someone like her being entrusted with essential tasks. My sister-in-law then grabbed my desktop computer and threw it out of the window. What are you doing? You're probably pretending to work hard without achieving anything. Leave this house immediately. I rushed outside to check on my computer, but it was damaged irreparably. I had also lost the valuable work data I had saved. I was genuinely shocked and disappointed by her immature actions. I couldn't imagine continuing to live together under such circumstances. I had been tolerating it for the sake of my relationship with my husband and mother-in-law, but this incident pushed me beyond my limits. I left a message and decided to return to my parents. I am Mary, 29 years old. Last year, I started a new life with my beloved husband, Sean. Initially, we imagined living in a city apartment as we both worked nearby. However, Sean was always concerned about his mother's health. His mother often experienced knee pain due to her previous job, and walking even a short distance required frequent breaks. Knowing this, we suggested living together. Upon hearing our proposal, she brightened up and said, "Mary, you want to live with us? I'm so happy." She's a genuinely kind-hearted person and warmly welcomed me. However, there was a concern. My sister-in-law, Amy, was obsessed with academic backgrounds. During our first family meal, my educational background came up and her demeanor changed. "Mary, you didn't go to college, right? Why would Sean choose someone like you?" She spoke to me in a somewhat harsh manner. "Sis, that's not a nice thing to say. But you graduated from a national university, Sean, and I graduated from a famous private university. Couldn't you find someone smarter and more charming? What's the merit of marrying someone with a lower education?" At her words, my mother-in-law reprimanded, "Amy, stop it." "Mary, I'm sorry for the rude things," she said. But I was already left speechless on the spot. My mother-in-law also looked down, biting her lip. I grew up with my hard-working mother after losing my father at a young age. Unable to afford college, I started working. In such circumstances, I was fortunate to be able to work at a tax accountant's office, and then another opportunity came my way. My boss said, "Why don't you try getting a certified public accountant qualification? Mary, I believe you can do it. giving me encouragement. With his support, I embarked on a new challenge, hoping to secure better job opportunities and income, and support my mother more. My husband understood this and conveyed my efforts to my sister-in-law. However, she remained cold. If Mary becomes pregnant, I hope the child won't take after her and will be intelligent. Such words came out of her mouth. Those words struck me deeply and unexpectedly. I wondered if I felt this way just because I had only a high school diploma. Although I found it perplexing, I didn't want to escalate the situation, so I refrained from further discussion. After that, my sister-in-law would often mock me over trivial things. For example, when I was cooking, she'd say things like, "Mary, can't you do it a bit faster?" Or during casual conversations, she would comment, "I really had fun during my university days," in a way that seemed to mock me. What bothered me was that she would say similar things to her daughter, Sophia. She would repeatedly advise Sophia, "When you grow up, make sure to go to a good university." Sophia, being a kind-hearted child, seemed to always listen to her mother's words obediently. My sister-in-law had high expectations for Sophia and was now starting to prepare for her junior high school entrance exam. The school Sophia was aiming for was S Academy Junior High, where my sister-in-law taught part-time. Although she doesn't have a teaching license and isn't a regular teacher, she took this role because she wanted to avoid additional responsibilities and work. She would deliberately say to Sophia in front of me, "Let's work hard together for the future." It was so frustrating that I would bite my lip. But when I thought of my beloved husband and my kind mother-in-law, I didn't have the courage to confront my sister-in-law. I didn't want to drag them into any trouble. My sister-in-law and I only met a few times a year. I kept telling myself that if I just endured her behavior, everything would be okay. However, an unexpected development awaited us. One day, my sister-in-law suddenly came to our house, holding Sophia's hand. "Mom, I got divorced, so we'll be staying here for a while. Please take care of us," she said nonchalantly, sitting on the living room sofa as if it were her home. Both my mother-in-law and I were shocked by this sudden news. "What? Divorce? Why all of a sudden? What happened?" My mother-in-law's face was filled with surprise and concern. My sister-in-law responded with a sigh. "That man was so annoying till the end. He kept complaining about the smallest things and never listened to me. But to divorce just because of that?" Before my mother-in-law could continue, she stopped herself. "It's not just that," my sister-in-law replied with a bitter smile. "When I asked for alimony during the divorce, he only agreed to pay $600. After being together for so long, I was shocked by the amount. So I thought it would be better to come back home where I don't have to worry about living expenses. Plus, I wanted to spend more time with you, Mom." She showed a slight smile and held her mother's hand. "I can live peacefully in this house." She then laid back on the sofa, scrolling through her smartphone within packed bags and boxes scattered around the room. My mother-in-law and I were lost for words, watching this chaotic scene. A look of surprise and confusion was evident on my mother-in-law's face, and I shared those feelings as well. After a while, my sister-in-law handed me some of her clothes, asking, "Mary, can you wash these for me later?" I suggested that they should be sent to the dry cleaners, but she replied self-centeredly, "You could do that much for me, right?" From then on, not only did her requests increase, but her troublesome behavior also intensified. One day, I discovered an oil-based pen stain on the laundry, which was clearly her doing. Upon seeing me sigh at the stain, she remarked smugly, "Oh, did I make a little mistake?" Then she added, "People with low education can't even do housework properly, can they? I wonder if there's any value in living for someone as useless as you?" Her actions were causing my stress levels to peak. I reached my breaking point and finally decided to discuss it with my husband. "I work all day and still have to deal with housework when I get home. It's a real burden when she purposely makes things dirty. I understand. It's hard for me to see you going through this," my husband replied, listening to me quietly. He promised we'd find a solution together. That night, he confronted my sister-in-law about her behavior. My husband's warm words and actions always gave me a sense of security. However, from the next day, the harassment from my sister-in-law escalated even further. You think Sean protects you, don't you? But to others, you just seem overly dependent. Relying only on a man doesn't make you strong. I don't have any intention of being dependent. Depending on someone, being protected by them. To others, you might seem like a coward. Can't you stand on your own? Holding back my emotions became harder with each of my sister-in-law's words. Despite facing many hardships in life and taking pride in overcoming them, I couldn't stand being hurt by her words. Seeing my distress, my husband seemed wary from the constant confrontations with his sister and began avoiding her. However, my sister-in-law's harassment didn't stop with me. It began affecting Sophia as well. She was keen on getting Sophia admitted to S Academy and was eager to send her to a tutoring school. Sophia, what's this test score? You can't get into S Academy with these grades. I'm sorry. If your grades don't improve, maybe you will need to hire a tutor. But remember, it's up to how hard you work. Sophia, looking like she was on the verge of tears, nodded. She had already been going to a cram school every day after school. Getting a private tutor would make her lose any free time she had left. Feeling sorry for Sophia, I offered, "Do you want to study with me? I can help you with some things." "Really? Of course, I'm here for you." From then on, we started studying together, careful not to get noticed by my sister-in-law. Although Sophia sometimes struggled, she grasped concepts when taught patiently. "Mary, I got 80 points on my test." "That's great, Sophia. You worked really hard." Sharing that success brought genuine warmth to our hearts. My mother-in-law, who noticed our efforts, sometimes cheered us up secretly by sharing delicious cakes with us. The time spent with her and Sophia became my healing moments. However, this peaceful time was short-lived. One day, while studying with Sophia, my sister-in-law unexpectedly returned home. Seeing us, she shouted, "What are you doing?" "We are just studying." "You, with no formal education, are teaching her? I can't believe it. You might make her grades drop. Stay away." Furthermore, my sister-in-law slapped Sophia on the shoulder and yelled at her. "Why are you spending time with her? Do you want to end up like her?" The way she spoke about me as if I was contagious made my anger boil over. All the things I had been holding back just overflowed. As I told you before, I only graduated high school due to financial reasons. Judging someone solely based on their educational background is wrong. "What did you say?" My sister-in-law exploded even more. Hearing the commotion, my mother-in-law intervened. "What's happening here? Mary is getting too close to Sophia. What if her low educational background influences Sophia? Do you know who's ensuring our comfortable lifestyle? Haven't you seen how hard Mary works at home?" My mother-in-law's calm yet pointed words only fueled my sister-in-law's anger. "Why are you defending her? Anybody can do household chores." "It's not just chores. She's working hard, contributing to our household. All you do is go out and play, indifferent to what's happening at home. You should be more grateful. Are you saying she has a proper job? I can't believe it." With that, my sister-in-law grabbed my PC from the desk and threw it out the window. "Why would you do that? That job you cherish so much probably isn't that big of a deal. Stop acting so pretentious. Just leave this house already." I rushed outside in a panic to check my computer, but it was broken beyond repair. It contained my work's vital data. I felt anger and disappointment towards her childish behavior. Living together with someone like this was then impossible. For a long time, I had valued my relationship with my husband and mother-in-law, trying to protect our household. However, I had felt my limits then. That night, I left a note and decided to return to my parents' home. The next morning, I received repeated calls from my sister-in-law, but I ignored all of them. However, within a week, my husband and sister-in-law showed up at my workplace. He strongly conveyed his apologies, saying, "Amy's completely wrong this time. Amy, please apologize sincerely." Though encouraged by Sean, her dissatisfaction was evident from her attitude. Why should I apologize? Sophia's grades have clearly dropped in her absence. Mary's presence must have been important not only for Sophia but for you as well. Indeed, I had felt guilty deep down about Sophia's academic struggles. It seems there's no other way. Mary, come back home and support Sophia's studies. I never wanted to live with someone with your educational background, but I'll endure it for Sophia's sake. I had wanted to return for Sophia's sake, but her arrogant tone nearly extinguished that desire. If you truly care about Sophia's education, why don't you teach her yourself, Amy? You strongly recommended her to study for exams, so why are you neglecting her? I don't want to be told anything by someone like you. I encourage Sophia to study for exams because I don't want her to end up in a lowly position like you. Is that really all there is to it? I want Sophia to grow up to be an elite adult like me. I want her to graduate from a renowned university and build a career like the one I've established at the prestigious S Academy. She continued, flaunting her own success. Unable to bear the exchange, my company's director intervened and tried to resolve the matter peacefully. Excuse me, I assume you are Mary's family? Nice to meet you. Yes, that's right. My husband greeted the director politely. I have overheard a little. I'd like to affirm that Mary has shown tremendous capability and contributed significantly to our company. Really? I never thought you'd hire someone with just a high school degree. Education doesn't solely define a person's abilities. Even compared to university graduates, Mary has been producing equal if not better results. My director's words left my sister-in-law with a surprised expression. Do you truly believe that? I think educational background determines one's status and value. The director responded calmly. You mentioned you work at S Academy. May I have your name? My name is Amy Smith. You're Ms. Smith. I've heard about your troublesome attitude and behavior. Are you implying Mary has been speaking ill of me? No, I haven't heard about you from Mary, but I have heard about you from the principal and other staff at S Academy. Amy's eyes widened, clearly taken aback. Here's the reason. The director handed her a business card. It clearly read S Academy Board Chairman. You're the chairman. Both my husband and I were utterly shocked, lost for words. Upon understanding the information on the card, Amy's demeanor changed instantly, her eyes filled with fear and surprise. I've heard about your behavior and issues within the academy. Delegating your work, shirking responsibilities, and even discriminatory actions towards students. Numerous problems have been pointed out. In a panic state, Amy responded, "That's not true." Of course, I was considering a direct response. Upon hearing this, my sister-in-law started to panic. I can't lose my current job. I just got divorced, and it's tough to support my daughter and myself. She begged desperately with a serious look on her face. The principal replied calmly but with deep understanding. Our school's policies and philosophies are clear. We cannot tolerate work behavior like yours. My sister-in-law was devastated and burst into tears on the spot. The next day, an official notice from S Academy confirmed that she had to leave the school. Unable to hide her shock, she returned home in confusion. Afterwards, she locked herself in her room, and occasionally, voices of anger and dissatisfaction could be heard. This situation started affecting the family dynamics. Her stress was often directed at Sophia and her mother, and the tension in the household grew day by day. How can you not even solve this simple problem? For a sixth grader, this is unacceptable. You will not rest or sleep until you finish this textbook tonight, so make sure you get it right. Sophia had been studying under this strict guidance day after day. Her fatigue was evident on her face, and I was worried she might fall. Amy, stop pushing Sophia like this. Think about what you're doing. My mother-in-law interjected, unable to bear the situation. Mom, shut up. I don't want to hear anything you say. Taking the situation seriously, my mother-in-law finally told Amy to leave the house. Amy, you can't stay here any longer. Leave now. Why should I be the one to leave? You're the one pushing Sophia to the brink and harming her mental health. If you care about her as your own daughter, Leave this house now. I can't believe you're trying to take my daughter away from me. My mother-in-law asked the distressed Sophia. Sophia, what do you want? Do you want to stay in this house or go somewhere else with your mother? Sophia's answer was clear. I want to stay in this house. I'm scared to be with Mom. Shocked by these words, Amy lowered her head and cried. But my mother-in-law's resolve was firm and she escorted her daughter out of the house. Reflect sincerely on your actions. What you did can never be tolerated. With that, my mother-in-law closed the door. Afterwards, my sister-in-law ended up losing her job and home. She tried various jobs, but due to her personality, she struggled and her difficult life continued. With her gone, I returned to my mother-in-law's home and regained our peaceful daily life. Sophia regained her peace of mind and started to smile every day. When we learned that she wanted to continue her studies, we, as a couple, decided to support her. A year later, Sophia successfully passed the entrance exam to S Academy. As her hard work finally bore fruit, we felt genuine relief and joy. Now, Sophia continues to work hard towards her dream of becoming a teacher. We hope to continue supporting the path she has chosen. Hey, hurry up and wake up. Huh? Suddenly, I was really awakened by my husband. When I opened my eyes, my husband was looking down at me with an angry expression. If you neglect the housework, leave. You're just a parasite. That's how my husband berated me. At that moment, something inside me snapped. Okay, I understand. My name is Erica, and I'm a 34-year-old nurse. I married Ryan 5 years ago. We met at a mixer, and he approached me actively, leading us to start dating. He worked for a major company, and with his refreshing looks, he was very attractive, making him seem like a great catch. Even after we started dating, he always treated me with care and was a reliable presence. My feelings for him deepened day by day. About a year into our relationship, he proposed and we got engaged. I thought now was the only time for marriage. I decided to propose before Erica gets a year older. It seems he remembered my wish to get married in my 20s. I was drawn even more to his thoughtfulness. I happily accepted the proposal and we became husband and wife. After finishing the greetings with both parents and meeting each other's families, we held our wedding ceremony without a hitch. Married life started in a flash, and it was a happy and fulfilling new life. However, there were minor complaints. The main issue was that my husband did not help with household chores at all. He had no experience in cooking for himself, mainly relying on dining out or microwave food. For laundry, he would just lump everything together in the washing machine, and cleaning was only done when the room was extremely dirty, using a cleaning service. Even when I asked for help with the housework, he firmly refused, so all the household responsibilities fell on me. For me, who has night shifts, figuring out how to efficiently manage housework was always a problem. Yet, somehow, I balance housework and my job, going through each day. Though he did not do housework, my husband expressed gratitude for taking it all on me. Your cooking is always delicious. Making lunch for me, I really appreciate it. Such words of gratitude from him motivated me to keep up with the housework. In this situation, I had no choice but to handle the household chores alone. Even with minor issues, we continued a happy and loving marriage overall. Before I knew it, 5 years had passed since we got married. I believed that our peaceful and comfortable married life would continue forever. However, I recently started to feel something off about my husband's behavior. He seemed irritable and prone to anger. Hey, why isn't dinner ready yet? I'm sorry, I was especially busy today and came home late. It's rare for you to come home on time too. Huh? Is it a problem for you if I come home early? That's not it. It's just that I was delayed and haven't prepared dinner yet. You're making excuses. Your sloppiness is becoming too much. You used to be more put together. I'm troubled by you saying that. I'm also busy with a responsible position at work. Then why don't you just quit your job? Are you really thinking that? Yes, exactly. I work for a top-tier company. It's more fitting for a wife to focus on the household. The situation where my wife has to work is embarrassing for me. What do you mean by that? My husband has a strong sense of pride and sometimes says such things. I could endure it when it was rare, but recently such remarks and actions have increased, causing me significant mental strain. When he gets emotional, there's no telling what he'll do. It's really troubling. Really, if I quit my job, what would become of our lives? My husband prides himself on working for a major company, but his salary is on a downward trend, not to mention promotions. In reality, our livelihood is supported by my income, which he seems unaware of. Anyway, I want you to properly do the housework. Saying that, my husband plopped down on the sofa. I would like him to help, but saying so would only invite more trouble. I hurriedly prepared dinner in a rush. Fish again? I wanted meat. Even when I served dinner, my husband would complain like that. After finishing the meal, he would lie down on the sofa without cleaning up his dishes. I wish he would at least clean up his own dishes. While complaining in my mind, I reluctantly started washing both his and my dishes. Are you on a night shift tomorrow? Yes, that's right. So, there's no dinner for tomorrow night, huh? Yes, that's correct. Ryan always checks if I have a night shift, probably just to know if dinner will be prepared or not. Inside, I want to scream, I'm not your housekeeper. We've been married for 5 years, but if this situation continues, it might be time to consider a divorce. We don't have children, and I have a stable job, so I should be fine on my own. Then, something concerning happened. After returning from a night shift, I decided to take a shower. After getting out of the shower, thinking I could still make it in time for trash day, I decided to clean the hair from the bathroom drain and put it in a garbage bag. Among the collected hair, I found strands that were clearly not ours. Both my husband and I have black hair. The length of the hair suggested it belonged to a woman. Both my mother-in-law and my mother have black hair. It's unlikely they would come over and use the shower without us knowing. At that moment, a heavy suspicion crossed my mind. Could it be an affair? Was Ryan inviting another woman over while I was away on night shifts? I didn't want to accept such a fact, but I could think of no other explanation. Therefore, I decided to hire a detective agency to investigate. If my husband was indeed having an affair, it would be a betrayal. Thinking about it, the insults I had endured fueled my anger even more. Additionally, I decided to set up a hidden camera in the bedroom. Though I didn't want to think about it, if he was bringing another woman home, there could be inappropriate actions taking place in the bedroom. I began to secretly monitor my husband's actions, noticing that he often smiled while using his smartphone on the sofa, dealing with the daily dishes and harboring dissatisfaction with my husband. I hadn't noticed these changes in his behavior. When I approached while he was smiling, he quickly hid his smartphone and changed his expression to a serious one. This behavior seemed clearly suspicious. With these doubts in mind, I awaited the report from the detective agency. About a week later, I was contacted and went to receive the investigation report. As expected, the report confirmed my husband's infidelity. The other woman was a young lady working at a nightclub, 23 years old. Knowing this fact, my disappointment in my husband was immeasurable. Since that day happened to be a night shift, I decided to check the hidden camera footage the next day after returning home. After my husband left the house, I retrieved the camera from the bedroom and checked its contents. The footage clearly recorded my husband and the woman engaging in a relationship. This evidence made his betrayal clear, leaving no room for excuses. Though tired, I decided to collect the evidence and take it back to my parents' house to avoid the risk of my husband finding and losing the evidence. At my parents' house, I secured my safety and explained everything to them. They were openly angry at my husband and advised me to divorce him as soon as possible. So, on my way back, I stopped by the city hall to pick up a divorce form. After returning home and sitting on the sofa, the fatigue from the night shift overwhelmed me, and I unknowingly fell asleep. Hey, wake up already! Huh? Suddenly, I was violently shaken awake by my husband. As I opened my eyes, my husband was looking at me with an angry expression. It seems I had been asleep for a while. Was it already time for my husband to come home? Rubbing my eyes, I checked my phone. 2 p.m. still? Looking at the clock, it was still pointing to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I had returned home around 12:30 p.m., meaning I had only been asleep for about an hour and a half. However, why was my husband home at this time? Why are you home at this time? What about your work? I was in the middle of sales. I came back to pick up something I forgot. Oh, I see. But why wake me up? I'm sleepy after the night shift. Quiet. Don't talk back. It's strange to be sleeping past noon. Normally, you would be cleaning the house or preparing dinner by now. Wouldn't cleaning up bring out more evidence? Despite arguing in my mind against my husband's words, I said nothing on the surface and let the moment pass. I'm really tired today. I usually wake up and do the chores, so please forgive me for this once. No, I can't trust someone who lies. What? Liar. You're always deceiving. If you're going to neglect your chores, leave the house. Parasite. Being yelled at by my husband, something inside me snapped. Alright, then goodbye. Huh? I said I'm leaving. Hey, are you really going to do that? Yes, I'm serious. With those last words, I began packing my things. While my husband watched in confusion, he couldn't retract his words since he was the one who told me to leave. Do as you like. Leaving those words behind, my husband went back to work. I quickly packed my belongings and returned to my parents' house. Afterward, I withdrew all the money from our joint account. The truth is, we had a joint bank account, but my husband hadn't put any money into it for the past 6 months. We used to contribute to this account monthly and managed our living expenses from it. But since my husband stopped contributing to our household financially, we've been in a tough situation. Furthermore, a large sum of money was withdrawn last month. I realized that the savings I had diligently accumulated were almost gone. When I confronted my husband about it, I was told it was used for his father's surgery. However, when I visited my in-laws after deciding to divorce due to my husband's affair, they revealed there was no financial assistance needed for any surgery. Clearly, my husband used the funds for personal reasons, likely for his affair partner. To prevent any more wasteful spending of my earnings, I emptied the joint bank account. That night, my husband must have noticed that all my belongings were gone. He called me several times in a panic. Reluctantly answering, my husband exclaimed in despair, "Hey, did you really leave?" "Yes, exactly. I left the divorce papers on the dining table. I've already filled out my part. You should fill it out quickly too. Are you seriously considering divorce?" "Of course. I can't stay with you any longer." After saying that, my husband showed his anger as if his pride was hurt. "After all I've done to provide for you, don't you think you're lacking gratitude? Huh? It's a fact that you could live a comfortable life thanks to the major company I work for. On what basis are you saying such things? Have you forgotten that you're not getting promoted and your salary is only decreasing? Or are you intentionally overlooking it? In fact, my income is higher than yours." "What?" "Indeed, I have been supporting and wisely managing our household finances, even managing to save. Your income may be small, but you felt it was sufficient because you were spending it on yourself. Moreover, you've been withdrawing money from our joint account without permission to spend on your affair partner." When I brought up his affair, he was clearly disturbed. "What are you talking about? Me having an affair is impossible. Where's the evidence for that?" "Unfortunately for you, all the evidence is in place. There are photos taken by the detective and videos from the hidden camera I installed in the bedroom. I've already shown them to your parents. I am definitely proceeding with the divorce and will be demanding compensation." Upon my declaration, my husband started to panic. "Wait a minute. It was just a bit of fun. The only one who's important to me is Erica." "What are you talking about? Recently, you've been cold to me, and ultimately you even told me to leave the house. I wasn't, serious. I don't want to hear such excuses. I'm fed up with you. Acknowledge the mistakes you've made and reflect on them. This can't be. Let's discuss this through lawyers from now on." "Wait, Erica." He said that, but I ended the call. After that, I hired a lawyer and demanded a divorce from my husband. I also filed for compensation against my husband and his affair partner. Thanks to an excellent lawyer, I was able to claim $30,000 from both my husband and his partner. My husband was reluctant about the divorce and the compensation payment until the end, but after being strongly persuaded by my in-laws, he reluctantly accepted it. I successfully finalized the divorce from my husband. My ex-husband tried to continue the relationship with his affair partner, but as soon as she realized his income wasn't much, she quickly dumped him. Additionally, not only was my ex-husband low in work capabilities, but the fact that he got divorced due to an affair spread in his workplace, leading to a drop in his reputation. As a result, his position in the company worsened, and his hopes for promotion were completely dashed. Furthermore, he was disowned by my in-laws and is now living alone, struggling with debt repayment. It's his own doing, so it can't be helped, but it's truly pitiable. On the other hand, I have moved to a condominium closer to my work and am enjoying living alone. Thanks to separating from my husband, I have been able to save more smoothly, and my assets are steadily increasing. For now, I plan to focus on my work and maybe consider dating again once things have settled down. Currently, my priority is to care for my patients, and I intend to work while making the most of each day. I am Rachel, a 44-year-old housewife. As the wife of Danny, who owns a company, I served as the sales manager. One evening, I was shocked by the words uttered by Danny when he returned home. I fathered a child with a beautiful 29-year-old employee. Please, can we get a divorce? I was stunned by his words. Unable to keep up with this unexpected event, I felt lost in thought. I told my husband that I wanted to discuss this with the three of us at a later date and laid down in bed. Kristen was pregnant. The reason we couldn't have children was because of me. Even though I thought my love for Danny had run out, I couldn't stop crying. The next day, I overheard a conversation between Danny and Kristen. Why didn't you leave your wife who can't even have children? She's good at her job. There's no reason to fire her. Then, let's just leave it at that. Once the baby is born, we can make her take care of it. That's smart, Kristen. She's older, so she must have plenty of parenting knowledge. Hearing their laughter, I felt anger. How selfish of them to say such things. They can laugh about it now, but they'll deeply regret underestimating me. I met Danny again at a gathering with friends from my college days 10 years ago. Danny was the only son of a well-known local business and lost his father in childhood. His mother was the company's chairperson. In college, I had classes with Danny, but he was always surrounded by people. Feeling inferior due to our different backgrounds, I hardly had a chance to get close to him. However, upon reuniting, I found him to be unpretentious about his wealth, friendly, and outgoing. Later, when we dined together, Danny asked me out and eventually proposed. My family was just an ordinary salaried worker's household. I was worried his mother might oppose our relationship, but she accepted me easily during our visit. It seemed my college education in accounting, finance, and business management, along with the qualifications I had obtained, left a good impression. After our engagement, I joined Danny's company and then worked as the sales manager. Raised seeing my parents' loving relationship, I always longed for a married life, believing I could build a happy home with someone I love. But I never imagined that this happiness would crumble in just 10 years of marriage. Initially, Danny was very kind, but as a company president with extensive social obligations, his weekends were almost always busy. Danny had friends, but they were strangers to me. I thought I would be left out, but he invited me to activities like barbecues, camping, and skiing, and introduced me to his friends, including men, women, couples, and married individuals. Since I had no friends of the different gender, I was anxious about Danny's female friends, but he handled it appropriately. Neither his female friends nor he ever behaved inappropriately, and I felt reassured. Danny was friendly to everyone, regardless of their marital status or gender. As someone shy around new people, I respected him for that. However, over the years, Danny's attitude gradually became colder. He frowned when he saw me, sighed, and looked displeased at the cosmetics in the bathroom. Danny, our anniversary is coming up. Should I make a reservation at our usual restaurant? Danny responded grumpily. As you can see, I'm busy. I don't have time to go to a restaurant. But every year, no matter how busy, you always made time for that day. He sighed deeply and replied irritably. If you want to go that badly, go by yourself. Don't act like we're still newlyweds. I was hurt by his harsh treatment. Telling myself he was just tired and irritable, I chose a tie from his favorite brand as a birthday gift, but he didn't appreciate it. Rachel, you really have no taste. I'm tired of this brand. It's just filling up the drawer. All I could say was I'm sorry. Even after carefully choosing it online and in stores, I didn't expect such a response. I have no memory of particularly angering him. Even though he claimed to be busy, Danny regularly attended gatherings with his friends. I began to wonder if he didn't want to go out with me. Then, something even more shocking happened. When Danny suggested a trip to the shopping mall, I was thrilled and began to prepare eagerly. I put on new clothes, special day makeup, and waited excitedly for Danny to get ready. But when he saw me ready to go, he sneered and said, "What's with that outfit? Consider your age. Don't wear skirts like that. Really? Is it not okay?" I was bewildered. Do you even realize how old you are? You're in your 40s, a middle-aged woman. Your makeup and hairstyle are too flashy. It's unbecoming. You used to be attractive, but not anymore. His words, belittling me, stung. But your friends dress fashionably, right? They are beautiful, so it's fine for them. You're different. Trying to look young at your age, it's embarrassing. I'm not trying to act young. When I tried to argue, Danny became irritated and clicked his tongue. Dress more normally. Do you want to embarrass me? Forget it. I don't feel like going out anymore. You ruined the mood after I had made the effort to ask you out. He showed his disgust, scratching his head and throwing his jacket on the sofa before retreating to his study upstairs. Make pasta for lunch. I want it in 30 minutes, he called down from the staircase. I was just a little excited for a rare outing. Why did it upset Danny? I bit my lip, holding back tears, changed into my room wear, removed my makeup, and started preparing lunch. Thinking about it, Danny is the same age as me. If I am a middle-aged woman, then he is a middle-aged man too. I might not be beautiful, but Danny is just an ordinary middle-aged man. Raised to be a future company president, he is full of high self-esteem and confidence. Before we got married, I found these traits attractive, but I never imagined being scorned like this. Sometimes complaints rise to my lips. However, since we work at the same place, I often have to see Danny at work. Considering the impact our awkward relationship might have at work, I end up yielding and trying to appease his mood, while he takes the lead at home. Outside, he is friendly and gets along with everyone easily. A typical second-generation business owner, he lacks management skills, but his bright smile and approachability make him loved by business partners. In contrast, his surliness at home is like that of a different person. I'm the president. I can't eat such mundane food. Even microwave food would be better. He complains, having microwave food next to me while I eat? Always dissatisfied unless it's what he wants. Moreover, he seems displeased when I go out while he's at home. Leaving your husband alone and going out? Can you even call yourself a housewife? I'm just going shopping. I've prepared something easy for lunch, and I'll be back before dinner. You should cook yourself. You're a housewife. Living off my earnings and still have it easy. True, my income is lower than Danny's as a company president. But I also work full-time and earn a decent salary. I contribute properly to our household, so I don't see why I should be complained at. Especially when Danny first took over the company from his mother and caused problems due to his inexperience. I was the one running around to apologize to our partners. You were attractive 10 years ago, but now you're like an old, worn-out rag. Lately, whenever he speaks, he comments on my appearance. You failed as a wife the moment you couldn't have children. Staying married to you is an act of mercy. You should be grateful. I wanted children too, but it was fate. Should we get checked at the hospital? There's still a chance. Even when I suggest this, Danny shakes his head. I don't want to waste money. It must be your fault. But I forgive you because you're good at your job. When my stress builds up, I meet with my old friend Jenny and confide in her. Since our university days, she understands Danny's character well. Because Danny is good at keeping up appearances outside, he vents his frustrations on you at home, doesn't he? Jenny said, frowning with her chin in her hand. Danny often came to you crying for help, didn't he? I wonder if he thinks he's grown the company all by himself? I guess he's forgotten to be grateful, I muttered softly. I did my best too, despite the support from his mother and other executives. Thank you, Jenny. Talking to you has made me feel better. When I expressed my gratitude, Jenny responded with a gentle smile. I'm always on your side. Feel free to rely on me anytime. I'll be here to help. Her words lightened my heart a bit. Lately, Danny's behavior has been clearly strange. He goes out every weekend and his weekdays end late into the night. Yet, he doesn't seem tired at all, rather always in a good mood. On Sunday night, after finishing the housework, I was reading in the living room when Danny went out again. He would probably return late that night, but unexpectedly, around 8 p.m., Danny came home. He entered the living room, his face flushed and unable to hide his excitement. Welcome home, you're early today. Rachel, I have great news. What happened? I'm going to have a child. I was shocked, my eyes wide. What? I fathered a child with a beautiful 29-year-old female employee? Please, let's get divorced. I stared at him in surprise, struggling to comprehend this unforeseen event. I'm finally going to be a father, a successor. Mother will be happy too. Wait, you've been having an affair? When I asked in shock, Danny calmly answered. Do you know the accountant, Kristen Wagner? Yes, she's certainly beautiful, right? She's young and stylish, in her 20s and capable at her job. After all, youth is important in a woman. I knew Kristen was beautiful, but it was news to me that she was competent at her work. So, you're no longer needed. Let's get a divorce. His blunt statement angered me. I had accumulated grievances against Danny over the past 10 years, and though I had no lingering attachment to our marriage, I wasn't simple enough to agree immediately with yes, I understand. If he had been unfaithful all this while, I would have to demand significant compensation from both of them. I'm confused by this sudden news. Let's invite Kristen here later and discuss this among the three of us. When I suggested that, Danny cheerfully agreed. Okay, I'll let her know. Watching him go to take a shower, I closed a book I was reading. I went upstairs to the bedroom and laid down on my bed. A sense of emptiness washed over me. More than being cheated on, the reality of him having a child crushed me. Danny had always wanted a child, especially a successor. Of course, there's no guarantee it would be a boy, but I never got pregnant in the first place. The fact that Kristen was pregnant meant the problem was with me. If we had a baby, maybe I would be raising it with Danny by now. Despite having lost all fondness for him, I couldn't stop crying. The next morning, with swollen eyes, I went to the office early and brewed myself a coffee to wake myself up. As I was about to step into the corridor, I overheard Danny and Kristen's conversation through the door. Was she shocked? Yeah, she was stunned. She really didn't notice the affair? That's laughable. It's been going on for 2 years now, Kristen giggled. Why didn't you let go of a woman who couldn't even have children sooner? Kristen asked, to which Danny replied, she can handle housework and is good at her job. If we got divorced, she would probably go to another company. Then, let's just keep things as they are for now. Once the baby is born, we can make her take care of it as the president's child, Kristen suggested, and Danny seemed impressed. That's smart, Kristen. She's older, so she probably knows a lot about raising children. If we say it's for the child, she'll listen. They laughed heartily. I clenched my fists in anger. They were only talking selfishly. Their laughter would only last for now. I'll make them regret underestimating me. After making meticulous preparations, I told Danny to invite Kristen to our house in 2 weeks. And then the day came. Kristen arrived as if she was visiting a friend's house. Sorry for intruding. Wow, Danny's house is really lovely. I've wanted to visit here for a long time. Watching Kristen's eyes sparkle, Danny arrogantly said, "You should have said so earlier. I had her prepare a meal to welcome you." Ignoring my displeased face, Kristen wandered around the house curiously. The kitchen is so spacious and stylish. It's totally different from my small apartment. Your apartment is cute too. It has a young girl's vibe. Really? Can I see the other rooms too? Kristen asked indiscreetly, and Danny nodded satisfactorily, leading the way. This is the guest room, and next to it is the sunroom. It's enviable to have a sunroom, but there are so few houseplants. It's a waste of such a big space. Is this Rachel's taste? Kristen expressed dissatisfaction in a space with a glass table and an indoor hammock. She came to apologize for the affair, yet she had the nerve to criticize the interior of someone else's home. Well, a sane person wouldn't think of having her child raised by the CEO's wife. Rachel isn't as gentle as you, Kristen. Whenever she tries to grow plants, they just die. It seems like plants don't like her, Denny said. That's too bad, Rachel, Kristen responded with a laugh. We came here to talk, right? Let's sit down at the table, I said coldly. I waited for Danny and Kristen to sit on the opposite sofa at the table and then began speaking. I want to confirm again, Kristen, you're pregnant with Danny's child, right? I asked. They nodded. Rachel, I'm really sorry. But this is fate, Kristen pleaded with tears in her eyes, looking at me. I was irritated by her overfamiliar way of addressing me. We have a child coming. Danny and I were meant to be together in a past life. Your marriage to him was a mistake. If we don't correct this mistake and start a new life, both of you might become unhappy. I love both of you, so I can't allow that to happen. Hearing Kristen's bizarre rationale, I smirked sarcastically. I was past anger, now just astounded by her self-justification. I truly love Danny from the bottom of my heart. So please, let me have his child, Kristen implored with a sweet, sorrowful voice. Moved by her words, Danny appeared to hold back tears of emotion. Kristen, I love you deeply too. It would be too cruel for the child born into this world to grow up without knowing a father's love. As the heir, the child must be raised with love by both parents. Danny spoke earnestly. Watching Danny and Kristen converse closely, my heart drifted further away. Any remaining affection for him had completely vanished, and I could no longer imagine a future together as a couple. I understand. But in exchange, I'm quitting my job, I said with resolve, and Danny's face showed distress as he furrowed his brow. Don't quit. At your age, it will be hard to find work. Considering your contributions to the company, I'll allow you to continue working, Danny appealed. Do you really think so? I have management qualifications, and I can find work elsewhere, I retorted confidently. Danny, you're so kind. Since the president says so, Rachel, there's no problem with you staying at the company. I don't mind at all, Kristen said with a broad smile. I glanced coldly at Kristen and sighed deeply. Her words further chilled my heart. Impossible. Because that woman. I paused, taking a breath to prepare myself to reveal a shocking fact. They didn't yet know that my next words would completely change the atmosphere of the room. In fact, she's been misusing company funds. What did you say? Kristen's eyes widened for a moment. Then she averted her gaze from Danny to the floor. What did you just say? Danny couldn't hide his blatant dismay. I explained the details meticulously. She had been personalizing funds under the guise of entertainment and business trips. She was filling in blank receipts with amounts herself. As Danny's complexion changed, I continued calmly. For 2 years, no one but me noticed. But recently, after interviewing a few people involved, the truth finally came to light. I said with a sigh. Even though it's a family-run business, such lax management is reason enough to cut ties. After the divorce, it's really a hassle to see your faces. So, I'll look for another job. Don't make baseless accusations, Kristen retorted with a strained face. Where's your proof? I directly questioned the finance manager you deceived, and the vice president brought out the truth. It's all recorded. Do you want to see it? I said, pulling out my cell phone. At that moment, Kristen covered her face with her hands and began to cry bitterly. I'm sorry. My father's company went bankrupt. My mother fell ill from the shock and was hospitalized. My brothers rebelled against the family, made debts, and disappeared. My salary alone couldn't support the family, so I ended up doing it. Kristen spoke through her tears. It was like she had prepared eye drops, given the amount of crying. Danny was easily fooled by her story, sympathizing while holding her shoulder. That must have been really tough. If you had told me, I could have helped, Danny said. I didn't want to burden you, Danny. The money I used has all gone to paying off the debts, so I can't return it. Kristen excused herself. Danny seemed to take her word for it, but she probably just spent it all herself. What are you saying? There's no need to be so reserved. Crying too much will affect a baby. How much was it? Danny asked. $20,000. Of course, I'll make sure you pay it all back. Depending on how you behave, I might sue you for embezzlement, I replied. That amount, we can cover it. Who else knows about this? Danny asked. The entire board, I answered. Then, I'll keep them quiet. Kristen, don't do it again. Yes, I've learned my lesson. Thank you, Kristen said, showing gratitude as Danny stroked her head. I just watched the exchange, utterly astounded. Danny's response as a president was unbelievably lenient, like a low-quality romance drama. Suppressing my nausea, I continued the conversation. So, Kristen, you were also working a night job to help your family? I asked. Danny momentarily couldn't hide his disturbance, but quickly regained his composure. The company doesn't restrict part-time jobs, but you should have reported it, Danny answered. Kristen twisted her face slightly and murmured a quiet, I'm sorry. I didn't miss the slight tension in Kristen's expression at that moment. While smiling subtly, I pointed to the photos spread out on the table. Looking at these photos might affect the baby. But if you've decided that, Kristen, I'll respect it, I said. My words were laden with hidden meaning. They still didn't know that the truth of this situation would soon become clear. Danny and Kristen looked at the photos, momentarily speechless. Kristen quickly grabbed one of them. This is, Danny started, just a commemorative photo with a client. Danny, you don't want to see anymore, do you? Kristen responded with a forced smile, but I quickly spread another photo in front of Danny. Danny gasped. The photos captured Kristen entering a hotel cozily with various men. Each picture suggested she was intimately involved with multiple men. Kristen tried to grab the photos in a panic, but it was too late. Danny was lost for words. Kristen started making excuses. It's not what it looks like. I just felt sick during a date outside the store and went into rest. I didn't do anything wrong. Danny, believe me. She pleaded with teary eyes, but Danny's expression was shaken. Is that really true? Danny asked. How cruel not to believe me. I love only you, Danny. Kristen clung to him, appealing passionately. Danny appeared to be in a complex state of mind regarding Kristen's behavior. I stood up with a sigh, brought out my personal computer from the bedroom, and plugged in a USB provided by a private investigator, playing decisive audio evidence. As Kristen's voice filled the room, Danny clutched his head and screamed. It was the moment when the truth of the situation was finally exposed. My actions had revealed the facts. Please stop. The hotel walls are surprisingly thin. It was easy to record with devices placed along the wall. Modern technology is amazing, I said calmly as Kristen stood up and approached me with a furious expression. Shame on you. Are you going to tear us apart by doing this? You're not considering Danny's feelings at all. You don't care about hurting anyone, Kristen accused with an angry voice. I'm just revealing the truth. You're the one who hurt Danny. And are you really pregnant? Or do you just want the status of a CEO's wife? I asked quietly. It's not true. My belly will start showing soon. It's definitely Danny's child, Kristen exclaimed. With those photos, who knows who the father is? I replied calmly. It's a mother's intuition. Kristen insisted. Intuition, I said with a wry smile. I was speechless at her audacity. Kristen stepped closer and confronted me, raising her voice. The other men were just for fun. Danny is the only serious one. Unfortunately, I can't understand that kind of thinking. I shrugged and then turned to Danny. What do you think, Danny? If a child who doesn't resemble you at all is born, will you still raise it as your heir? Danny stumbled over his words. Well, this moment was a turning point. The evidence I provided spoke for itself. I sarcastically commented on Danny's hesitation. So, as long as it's a boy, it doesn't matter if the child is someone else's. Just like a cuckoo. What are you talking about? My genes are there, so it's not someone else's child. And you, being infertile, have no right to say anything. Danny showed his anger. Why are you so arrogant despite being ugly? I've hated you since I joined the company. Acting all high and mighty just because you're good at your job? Kristen glared and raged. Getting too friendly with male employees, flirting with the boss. It's so annoying. She raised her voice further. I listened silently to Kristen's aggressive words, but she continued her tirade. You must be jealous because I'm pretty, right? You think you're a winner because you married the president, but you're wrong. Kristen laughed loudly. Enough, stop this talk now. Danny tried to stop her with a look of disgust, but she was too heated to cease. Despite Danny's attempts to calm her, Kristen kept lashing out. This situation went beyond a mere argument. Unable to have children, plain looking. In the past, you would have been divorced already, but it's a good era now. All because Danny is generous. You're imperfect and are only in this house out of pity. But that ends today. I will take over as the president's wife, and you should go back to being single. Kristen declared strongly. I lacked the energy to argue against Kristen's tirade and just listened passively until the living room door opened. Danny turned pale at the sight of the person entering. Mom, the chairwoman, perfect timing. Kristen stood up and greeted my mother-in-law. I'm honored to meet you, Mother. I'm Kristen Wagner from the accounting department. I'm pregnant with Danny's child, likely a boy. As I'm carrying the heir, I'll be marrying Danny. My mother-in-law pressed her temple with an exasperated expression. Sighing deeply, she said in a low voice, Danny, can you somehow calm this frivolous woman down? Well, Mother. A surprised Kristen stood frozen. My mother-in-law, with a stern look, scolded Danny. Only Rachel has the right to call me Mother. Danny, it's because you're not careful that such odd women approach you. She raised her voice. Kristen appeared a bit shaken, but forced a smile. Mother. I mean, chairwoman. In my belly is Danny's baby. My mother's intuition tells me it's a boy. I will bear a worthy successor in place of Rachel. Considering the future of the company, a child is necessary, right? Kristen pleaded desperately. However, she dismissed Kristen's plea coldly. It doesn't matter if my grandchild is a boy or girl. To want to be the CEO's wife, what a thought. To say such a thing after embezzling company funds. Wait, Mom. She's had a very complicated family situation. Can't you show some mercy? Danny tried to explain Kristen's situation, but his mother replied with a scoff. Such a naive child. Do you really believe that? Seeing the documents she placed on the table, Danny's face turned to despair. Mother, you've been investigating Kristen's actions too. I see. Looking at the documents, I smirked. Your parents work for a renowned company, and your brother studied abroad. Your family is far wealthier than my own. So, you used the embezzled funds for yourself, didn't you? Danny stared at Kristen in shock. There are photos of your extensive shopping at branded stores. You have debts from credit card payments. It's something like that, isn't it? Denny's mother chuckled. Moreover, the gynecologist Kristen visited is run by my acquaintance. When I asked, it turns out she isn't pregnant. Really? You're being treated for menstrual irregularities, right? Kristen blushed at her mocking expression. You old woman. How dare you expose my privacy? All right. Anyway, prepare yourself for embezzlement charges. Ms. Cohen, please proceed. Understood, Chairwoman. As Jenny, the family lawyer, appeared behind my mother-in-law, I sent her a smile. Yes, my best friend Jenny, our company's legal advisor. When Kristen's embezzlement came to light, I informed my mother-in-law and immediately consulted Jenny. We had been waiting for the right moment to pursue this issue when Danny asked me for a divorce. I'm sorry for lying about being pregnant, but my love for Danny is real. I want you to believe me. As Kristen appealed with tearful eyes, Danny's expression softened. Kristen. Then my mother-in-law, as if remembering something, said, Right, Danny. You're stepping down as president because of this affair. Danny and Kristen gasped. For just an affair. For having an affair with a woman who embezzled. That's only right. There's not a single board member defending you. No way. Danny held his head, his body trembling. You were kind and good at entertaining clients. That was your saving grace despite your lack of competence. His mother continued coldly. But a foolish son who belittles Rachel, who contributed to the company, and chooses an affair with a brainless young woman is unnecessary. You're lying. I'm being fired. Help me. I was deceived by Kristen. Danny cried out. Mom, I was wrong. It was just a whim. I'll break up with Kristen, so let me stay at the company. I can't change jobs at this age. Danny begged his mother pathetically, to which Kristen looked disgusted. What? You were all over me, but now that you're abandoned by your mother, you act like this. You're the worst. Kristen's eyes widened in anger. I approached you because you are a company president. Otherwise, I wouldn't get close to a man 15 years older than me. What? I thought you were into me regardless of my title. You liar. How naive you are to believe such a story. That's why you're easily deceived by me? Hearing Kristen's words, my mother-in-law shook her head in disbelief. You two are quite alike. In that respect, you're well matched. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Checking the camera at the entrance, there was a police officer. Perhaps mindful of the surroundings, the police car arrived without sirens. Kristen, not expecting to be actually arrested, was clearly disturbed. When the police officer entered the room, Kristen immediately tried to ingratiate herself. Please, listen to me. I was deceived by the finance manager. Let's discuss the details at the station. We need your cooperation. Being treated indifferently, Kristen clicked her tongue and was taken away in the police car. Standing dumbfounded at the entrance, Danny collapsed onto the sofa when he returned to the living room. That same day, the finance manager, a co-conspirator, was also arrested. However, as both were first-time offenders, they were quickly released. Kristen, with no savings, borrowed money to repay the full amount and the compensation to me. Naturally losing her job, she reportedly rejoined the nightclub where she previously worked and started another part-time job during the day. Forced to work day and night, including weekends, she seemingly lost the luxury to care about her appearance. When I recently saw her on the street, she looked exhausted, a shadow of her once attractive self. On the other hand, Danny, after the divorce, was spared from dismissal thanks to his mother's mercy and transferred to a regional branch. His demotion from the presidency was widely known within the company, and Danny continued working in a difficult environment, receiving cold stares from his colleagues. Forsaken by his mother and having spent all his savings on my compensation, Danny came to me asking for reconciliation. Rachel, I was wrong. I won't cheat again. Let's start over. I'm in financial trouble. Don't abandon me, okay? Why don't you rely on the young woman you loved so much? Your salary may be reduced, but you have a job, so work properly. After firmly rejecting him on the phone and blocking his contact, he finally seemed to give up. According to his mother, Danny's former brightness was gone. He worked silently every day and spent his weekends confined to his room. Then Danny's cousin, who was formerly the vice president, became the new president. I was promoted to a director position on the board, being recognized for my past achievements. The new president, though not very eloquent, was sincere and supported by the employees. My work became busier than before, but my days were fulfilling. Though I divorced Danny, I occasionally enjoy having meals with my mother-in-law. Considering that she never rushed me into having an heir despite being the chairwoman of the company, I've come to respect her even more after these events. I've cut ties with Danny, but I hope to continue a close relationship with my mother-in-law as a mentor in life. It seems my husband has been possessed by an evil spirit. This house will be given to Jenny. If you disagree, let's divorce. To think that the house I bought would be given to our eldest son's spouse. You better leave this house quickly. Ha. My husband sided with his daughter-in-law. I will put the house under my name. A monthly repayment of $1,800 is possible. My eldest son is also on his wife's side. Well, I'm no longer attached to such a dirty house. Then, as you all say, I will leave this house. You three will suffer from now on. Be on the lookout for what's about to happen. My name is Dorothy, and I am 60 years old. I hold a senior position in a leading company and have a higher status than usual. I live with my husband, Frank, who is 2 years younger than me. Last year, we renovated our house in preparation for the future. Our house was built by my father and has aged and deteriorated over the years. Therefore, we wanted to improve the living conditions to spend the coming years comfortably. However, considering our age, the monthly repayment amount is somewhat high at $1,800. But since I am an executive at a large company, the chances of passing the loan screening are pretty high. Frank works in management at a medium-sized restaurant but earns less than me, so the loan is more likely to be approved in my name. My salary alone makes it difficult to continue with the house loan. This house, originally belonging to your father, is currently registered in your name. I'm sorry, but could you take on the full amount of the loan? In return, I will contribute more to the household than before. After such a discussion, we decided to renovate. The renovated house has become more comfortable to live in, almost like a different place. It's very pleasing to know that by renovating the house I've lived in since childhood, I can continue to live here for a long time. I never imagined that the day I would leave this house would come. It was sudden. My cell phone vibrated. I'm getting married. My son Steve told me over the phone. Steve is 31 years old and works as a middle manager in a leading company. My eldest son, who has always been an excellent student, devoted to his studies and club activities, has continued to be enthusiastic about his work as an adult. That might be why I have never heard about his romantic relationships. I was very curious about the woman he was considering marrying. I wonder what kind of person she is. If Steve chose her, she must be charming. However, I'm worried that Steve, who has little experience in love, might be taken advantage of by someone with ulterior motives. I was filled with excitement and worry about meeting the woman my son brought home for the first time. Then, the day of the first meeting arrived. A woman with brown hair and a white chiffon dress, exuding purity, came to visit. I'm Jenny, please take good care of me. She was polite and charming, making for a likable first impression. I'm honored to meet you, father and mother. She smiled, showing her sparkling white teeth. If it's her, I can entrust my son with ease. I felt this way, and it seemed Frank shared a similar opinion, showing a smile. She's a wonderful girl. When Frank murmured that, she said, I'm so happy to hear that from you, Dad. I look forward to getting along with you. Gripping Frank's hand tightly and looking back at him. What's happening? Her intimacy surprised me, and I was a bit bewildered. Steve seemed surprised as well. However, a complex expression appeared on Frank's face. It wasn't jealousy, but it wasn't a comfortable feeling either. What are you doing? I asked, wishing for her to avoid such actions for my son's sake. She panicked. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done this upon our first meeting. And quickly apologized, withdrawing her hand from Frank's. I'm often told that I don't understand personal space. It's not intentional, but I'm truly sorry. It seemed like it really wasn't intentional. Still, I was somewhat surprised by her actions, considering I initially had a good impression of her. However, Steve truly loved her. Yeah, Jenny might have a strange sense of personal space. Haha, but that's part of her charm. I'm not good at talking with women, but she approached me proactively. That's why we could become so close and consider marriage. I didn't expect Steve, who is usually passive towards the opposite gender, to change so much because of Jenny. Please take care of Steve. Despite various emotions, if she is a good person, everything will surely be okay. I accepted their engagement. Afterwards, things progressed swiftly, and within a few weeks, they had officially submitted their marriage registration. I wished for the best for their future happiness. One day, half a year after they got married, I'm home. When I returned from work, there were unfamiliar women's shoes at the entrance. Stepping into the living room, I found Jenny. Oh, Mother, welcome back. The table was littered with empty cans and bottles of alcohol. It seemed they were enjoying some drinks. What's this? I wondered about the two of them having a party without Steve. I happened to meet Jenny on my way back from work. We talked about wanting to get closer, so we decided to drink together. But since it was before payday and money was tight, I suggested drinking at home. Why have a party at home? It would have been ideal if Steve also joined, and we all could have had fun together. I don't want to intrude on the newlyweds, but it would have been better if we gathered at Steve and Jenny's place. I tilted my head and answered, Indeed, we could have done it at our house, but the beauty of this residence is exceptional, and our place is a bit messy right now. Jenny's speech was unclear. She was slurring her words, clearly quite drunk. Hearing her normally precise speech become lax under the influence of alcohol was unexpected. But what was the reason for enjoying the alcohol just between the two of them? Why didn't you call Steve? I found it unusual for a daughter-in-law to come to her in-law's house to drink, especially during the honeymoon phase. After seeing them together, I started to look for Steve. Steve is currently busy with work and working late into the night. Because of that, I've been feeling very lonely. Jenny said, starting to cry. It's okay, Jenny, you've done nothing wrong. The problem lies with Steve, who leaves you alone despite being newlyweds. Saying this, Frank gently stroked her head. What? Father, what is this situation? I feel increasingly uncomfortable. Look, Frank, Jenny is Steve's wife. It's wrong to do this, especially to Steve. I scolded Frank for his excessive behavior. And then, suddenly, oh, don't be so harsh on Father. Jenny stood up for Frank. What? I reflexively uttered in surprise, confused by her statement. I had a lot I wanted to say, but the day's fatigue made everything feel bothersome. I'm going to take a bath. Please clean up after yourselves, I said with a sigh and headed to the bathroom. Afterwards, I called Steve to explain the situation, and he replied that he would leave work and come to pick her up immediately. Jenny's behavior seemed very odd to me. However, the fact that Steve rushed over to get her showed me how deep his affection is towards her. But I couldn't shake off the feeling that their future domestic life might be somewhat troublesome. Reluctantly, I decided to give advice about their future life when Steve arrived. While lost in thought in the bathroom, quite some time had passed. Returning to the living room with a somewhat dazed mind from the heat, Steve should have already picked up Jenny, but oddly, despite coming by car, they both seemed to be enjoying alcohol. Steve, you came by car, right? Why are you drinking? I asked, to which Steve, appearing drunk and cheerful, replied, Actually, Jenny told me to drink, and it turned out we're staying over tonight. It's good news that my son is staying over. However, the unexpected accompaniment of his wife was somewhat concerning. The decision felt quite abrupt. What? I was inwardly astonished, but Steve had already drunk alcohol. Hey, Mom can drive you. It's okay. I didn't want the daughter-in-law to stay over. Despite feeling tired, I offered to drive them home. However, Steve said, come on, it's okay. You're tired too, right? Why don't you join us for a drink instead? With an innocent smile. At that moment, I found myself speechless without any room for argument. Haha, huh? At that instant, a feeling of discomfort sprouted within me. Suddenly, Jenny looked at me with a smirk, as if her smile harbored some conspiracy. Could it be? It seemed like she was laughing at my puzzled appearance. It's just my imagination, right? I truly hoped it was a misunderstanding, but in reality, her plan had already been set in motion at that point. The next day, Jenny apologized deeply for her missteps multiple times. I am terribly sorry, she said before leaving, and I felt like peace had finally been restored, overwhelmed by fatigue. But when I returned home that day, Jenny was there again. Steve was nowhere to be seen. Disheartened by the previous day's events, there was a change in her demeanor. I'm sorry for the inconvenience again, but I really wanted to apologize in person, she said, handing over some sweets. I too lost my composure yesterday. I'm truly sorry. Frank seemed regretful as well. Seeing their remorse, I decided to forgive them this time. I appreciate it. Jenny seemed genuinely relieved, but perhaps because the situation was quite awkward, she stopped visiting our home afterwards. Honestly, I did not want to get deeply involved either, so I was grateful for that outcome. Then one day, Frank, with a serious look, said, I have something to tell you. As I waited in the living room, wondering what was going on, Steve and Jenny visited for the first time in a while. It's been a while, I greeted, but they seemed to ignore my words and passed by as if they hadn't heard me. Perhaps my voice didn't reach them. Suddenly, Frank declared loudly, this house will be given to Jenny. If you disagree, let's divorce. What? I was astonished. The discussion of transferring the house to Jenny came out of nowhere. It was a baffling situation. While I was confused, Jenny said, please leave this place. What does she mean? I'm confused. Wait a minute. What do you mean by transferring the house to Jenny? I asked, to which Frank replied, you've been making Jenny suffer, haven't you? That's unforgivable. She's such a good girl. Making her suffer. There's no such fact. However, Frank refused to listen to my argument. Shut up. I heard it from her. That's why she was crying, saying she couldn't go home. Frank continued angrily, with Jenny shedding tears. Why has it come to this? Then Steve also burst out in anger. I never thought my mother could do such a thing. You're horrible. The more I denied, the angrier they became, and Jenny's tears didn't stop. That's why we're going to divorce. Leave this house immediately. I plan to continue living here with them. I couldn't understand why I had to transfer my own house to Jenny. When I asked for the reason, because Jenny is deeply hurt. We could have sought compensation, but we thought of a better solution. Taking this valuable house from you and giving it to Jenny is the appropriate punishment for you, was the response I received, even though I didn't make her suffer. Why should I face such retaliation? It's impossible for Jenny, who quit her job after getting married, to pay a monthly loan of $1,800, I argued. Don't worry, we'll change the name to Steve. As long as Steve is working, the name change should be possible right away. However, there are restrictions on changing the name on a loan contract, so it wouldn't be that simple. In reality, changing the loan terms wouldn't be easy. I doubt the bank will allow it. When I counted, Frank said, don't worry, not only you, but Steve also works at a letting company. Plus, I have an acquaintance at the financial institution where you have the loan. If I talk to him, it should go smoothly. Appearing fully convinced. Yeah, a monthly repayment of $1,800? Piece of cake. Influenced by Frank's confidence, Steve also agreed. Gradually, the reality of transferring the house to them became apparent. I've said it many times, but I didn't do anything to her. There's no way I'm handing over this house. As I strongly objected, they became furious again. I was fed up with this situation. Then Jenny, who had been crying all this time, spoke up. "Mother, for the sake of us and our unborn child, please," she pleaded while caressing her belly. Unbelievable. "Mom, Jenny is actually pregnant right now. If her mental state becomes unstable, it could lead to the worst-case scenario. That's why I hope you can be a bit more lenient." Steve revealed the fact of her pregnancy. Indeed, stress during pregnancy should be avoided. However, being forced to transfer my home based on unfounded accusations is unacceptable. My heart was filled with turmoil. "I need some peace and quiet," I said, leaving the scene for the bedroom. Could I have unconsciously made Jenny suffer? I pondered while lying in bed when I found a strand of brown hair on the bed. What's this? Both Frank and I have black hair, so finding brown hair here is strange. Could it be Frank? My heart was disturbed. After the recent troubles, to find such a shocking discovery was overwhelming. I was getting confused. What's in the world? I cried myself to sleep. Waking up late at night, I was headed to the living room when I heard voices inside. Apparently, Steve and Jenny hadn't gone home yet. I wished I could have joined the evening drink. Someone said, "But Jenny, you're pregnant. You need to refrain," was the response. Hearing Frank and Jenny conversing joyfully, it felt like there was no space for me. My heart was heavy due to Jenny's inexplicable complaints. Standing frozen outside the living room, suddenly, an intimate sound reached my ears. "Ah, Jenny, I love you." Frank's voice. "Stop it, Frank. If Steve and Mother find out," Jenny replied. Shocked, I was disturbed by what Frank and Jenny were doing. "What on earth is happening?" "Don't worry. Steve is completely drunk, and Dorothy has been cooped up in her room all this time. She must be asleep by now." Haha, they were discussing. Haha, maybe she's angry and hiding under the bed? How funny. Haha, they laughed together. The brown hair I found was probably Jenny's. This is very unpleasant. What were they doing on my bed where I slept? I felt sick. They intend to push me out and secretly enjoy themselves with Jenny. My house being used inappropriately like this. Fine. I'll leave this uncomfortable house behind. However, I won't forget this, I thought to myself. The next day, I appeared in front of the three as if nothing had happened. In reality, I couldn't sleep in that bed anymore, too shocked to even close my eyes. "So, you've finally decided to transfer the house?" They smiled all at once when I said, "I've decided to transfer the house." "Great. Let's go for the name change procedures. I'll easily pass the loan screening." Steve was excited. He knows nothing. Although it saddened me at the moment, I had no intention of revealing the truth to my son. He wouldn't listen to his mother since he was under his wife's thumb. At least not yet. Afterwards, busy days of divorce proceedings and name changes followed. The name change process wasn't easy, but it was eventually completed. "This house is no longer yours." Haha, Frank taunted. "Hurry up and leave, old hag." Haha, Jenny whispered in my ear. I felt nothing but anger. They were the ones who were supposed to leave. I intended to make them, but not before getting back at them. Letting go of the home I had lived in since I was born was painful. Yet, I could no longer feel attached to a place associated with infidelity. I planned to use this abnormal situation to create turmoil between them. Wait and see when the time comes. A month after I left the house. "I'm ready," is what I said and headed to my former home. As I pressed the doorbell, Frank responded irritably, "What do you want, stranger?" Despite it being our first encounter in a long time. "I have something to discuss. Won't you let me in?" I answered firmly. "Why should I let you into the house?" Frank stubbornly refused my entry. "I have something very important to discuss, especially to Jenny." "An important matter concerning Jenny?" Frank's response shifted. Mentioning her name, they readily invited me inside. Using her name was the last thing I wanted. However, it was clear that Frank was heavily influenced by her, so I leveraged that. "You're a stranger now." Stranger. Even though legally we're strangers after the divorce, that term felt too heartless. I was infuriated by Frank's reaction. "Why are you here now?" They became more guarded. I want you to see this, I said, displaying some photographs. What is this? Their surprised voices filled the room. The photos were of Frank and her on a date, captured by a detective I hired to follow them after our divorce, recording their moments together. Wait, what? This is… Steve was unsettled. So what? We're just daughter-in-law and father-in-law with a good relationship. Nothing more, right? Why would you take such meaningless photos? What do you want? They insisted they were just close. Really? Then what about this? I pulled out my smartphone and played a certain audio. I've always liked Jenny. Keep your voice down, or Steve and my mother-in-law will hear. Their voices and inappropriate sounds were recorded. What's this? On the day I discovered their relationship, I had secretly recorded their conversation. You're just misunderstanding. Frank desperately tried to explain. Misunderstanding? This is clearly a problem. Steve erupted in anger. Jenny just looked down. I pressed further. Let me ask you, whose child is in your belly, really? Steve's complexion changed. Could it be Dad's? He was lost for words. That's impossible. He always comes. Oh, she inadvertently confessed. You admitted it. You just said it. Their argument intensified and Frank and Steve got into a scuffle. Ouch! Jenny seemed to be in pain, which made them stop fighting. I seized the moment. Haven't I always said, I didn't make Jenny suffer? Did you lie to get rid of me, to convince Steve? Steve was shocked. No, I'm the worst. Why didn't I believe my mom? He blamed himself for being swayed by Jenny and doubting his mother. It's so clear now. We should talk about this. Steve raised his voice at them. Initially silent, with all this evidence, are you considering a lawsuit? Apparently, Jenny initially had genuine feelings for Steve, but upon visiting our newly renovated beautiful home before their marriage, she began to desire it. My family home was a bit run down, and I aspired for such a beautiful house. The interior was also quite lovely. She tearfully explained. Wanting the house, she decided to get closer to Frank, using opportunities when he returned from work to drink without Steve. The months she didn't visit the house, she became close to Frank, plotting to get rid of me. You could have just suggested living together from the start. When I said that, she remained silent before finally responding. I don't have a positive impression of mothers-in-law. My own mother and grandmother were always fighting, and my grandmother constantly bullied my mother. So, I wanted to avoid living with my mother-in-law. Getting rid of you was the only solution to live comfortably in a beautiful house. If she had such an image of a mother-in-law, she wouldn't want to live together. But to go as far as taking my husband. However, how did Frank perceive this situation? I knew I was being used, but I fell for her the moment we exchanged greetings, shook hands, and she smiled at me. Despite knowing he was being used, Frank fell in love and decided to abandon me to keep her by his side. You guys are really unforgivable, Steve said as both of them looked down, tears streaming down their faces. Steve decided to get a divorce. DNA tests on the newborn confirmed Frank as the father. I won't be paying child support, he declared, demanding alimony from them. I made a similar choice. I never thought I'd be demanding alimony from my own father. I gently patted Steve's head as he sobbed. Our lives were thrown into chaos because of a foolish woman's actions. However, the life that got thrown into chaos the most was her own, which she would regret forever. My prediction was spot on. 2 years later, she chose to continue living with Frank in a de facto marital relationship, claiming it was for the child's sake. And to work and raise her child, she had to leave her newborn at daycare. Today, Grandpa, Dad came to pick you up, huh? She seemed to attract attention from other mothers at the daycare. While the children played well together, she felt lonely not being able to make any mom friends. Additionally, when she explained her divorce and relationship with Frank to her parents, they got furious, directing their anger at Frank too. Now, she is estranged from them. This was all the result of her own choices. Meanwhile, Steve lives alone in that house. I wanted to sell it, but that would be too cruel to Mom. After all, this is the house where Mom has lived all her life. I couldn't sell a house filled with such memories. He felt disgusted by the house and considered selling it but couldn't due to guilt, possibly influenced by my repeated expressions of discomfort towards the house. He arranged for house cleaning and disposed of all possessions belonging to Frank and her. Steve, acknowledging the trouble caused by her, said, "It might be because of that woman, but I've troubled you, Mom. You might not be able to forgive me, but please let's meet up sometimes. Visit the house. And let me be a good son to you from now on." And gave me trip tickets. Steve has shown deep remorse. Although I can't forgive him just yet, I'm willing to work towards restoring our relationship.